Okay, Joan, it's 7 o'clock. Let's get the show on the
I'm
road.
signing into YouTube. Just give me a second.
Joan, I'm getting the message that we are live on YouTube now.
Yes.
All right, so we can start the meeting. Okay. We'll call this to order. I will call the November 18th, 2020 Franklin Township Board of Supervisors meeting.
Mary, hold on one second. YouTube is, just give me a second here.
Joan, can you hear me?
Yes. Okay.
You're very soft at my end.
I'll raise my microphone up.
You know, the other thing, Paul, you might be able to go into the speaker settings and adjust your microphone audio settings. That might be low, or your speaker settings. Sometimes it defaults low.
And Mary, we're good to go now.
Okay. Then I'll call the November 18th, 2020 Franklin Township Board of Supervisors meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. Okay. In attendance via Zoom are Chairman McVeigh, Vice Chair Gerstenhaber, Supervisors Morris, Auerbach, and Day. Also in attendance, Township Manager Joe McFall, Assistant Township Manager Jeff Eastburn. Are you on, Jeff? I don't see you.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Yes, he's on. Okay, and Solicitor Mark Thompson. Are you with us, Mark?
Yes.
Okay.
I
All
am.
right. Very good. Thank you. All right. The first thing
And
I want to do.
the secretary.
Oh, Secretary Mary Oprimola. Sorry, Mary. First thing I'd like to do, which we haven't been doing because of all these Zoom meetings, is Pledge of Allegiance. I'm sorry for my little bitty flag, but I'd like to do the Pledge of Allegiance with everyone. So let's do that first.
That's a great idea.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I apologize for this cheesy.
No, it was great. That was wonderful.
Best I can do. Hold on, my book just dropped off the map. Okay, well, first thing we want to do is executive session. Hold on. Okay. An executive session was held on November 9th to discuss possible potential legal issues. And an executive session will be held after the public meeting tonight closes to discuss personnel. All right, now public comment. Public comment is for anything relating to items on tonight's agenda. The last public comment is for items not on tonight's agenda. It's important you state your name clearly for record so your comments can be reflected accurately. State whether you're a township resident or a township taxpayer. If you're using YouTube, you must type in your name and address before your comment will be recognized. If you do not identify yourself, your comments will not be reflected in the minutes. You're on, Dave.
So is there any public comment? Okay. Approval of minutes. I motion for the board to approve version 5 of the October 21st, 2020 Board of Supervisors minutes. Seconded by?
I'll second that, Dave.
Thank you, Donna. Any discussion?
Yes, I do not feel the minutes are accurate. I have a problem with the Ron Reagan analysis, and I also have a problem with the comments by Donna and all the money being transferred here, there, and everywhere, which I don't believe we agreed to. So I do not approve of the minutes. I think they're not accurate.
I have a problem with the process itself. I saw in the draft minutes that there was something incorrect. It was stated that we approved the tennis court spending for 2021. And I was told to talk to Donna. So I called Donna and said, that's not accurate. We couldn't have approved it because we didn't vote and we don't have the 2021 budget. And the call didn't go well. Donna hung up on me. And this wasn't me trying to get anybody's goat. I mean, if there's something wrong and it did get corrected later, I need to know what the process is. It's that simple. Otherwise, I don't feel that each of us has an equal voice. So to me, the minutes, I want these to work. I don't want to waste time on them. I don't want them to be contentious, but I need to know how I can get something corrected.
So Nancy, I just want to comment that you did call me. I felt that I was being attacked, but that may just be the way you present things. But I did hear you, and based on what you had said, I thought you made a very good point about the word approve was the wrong word, and so I immediately did change it to say considered. So that change didn't happen spontaneously. It happened because I did hear what you had to say. And so that change was made, and I thought it was a good change. It's just something about the way I perceived you approaching me that it seemed like I was being attacked. But I'm happy to say that I did hear you finally after I thought about it and fixed it. In terms of a process, we did agree a process. Now not we as the board, but it was something that we discussed. So Mario and I discussed with Mayor McVeigh, and what we had agreed to do. No, you want to go? Okay, so can I just say that was my perception of what we agreed? I mean, I can just say what I believe we agreed, and maybe Mario can comment. But it was that Mario would write the minutes. She would talk to Joan about them. Then I would have a chance to look at them because I'm always the one who's complaining that there's not enough detail, and so that I would have an opportunity to add additional. I look at it as additional context, and then it would go to Mayor McVeigh, and then Mary would comment on it, and then my understanding was then it would go to the board for the board to give feedback, but upon further discussion with Mary and this Mary McVeigh, I thought we agreed, was that no, we would have the board provide their feedback at the meeting when we go to present the minutes. So that's my understanding of what the process is. I totally agree with you, Nancy. You have every right to review them and get your feedback in. I personally would prefer that to happen before it got into the meeting book, but that's just we have to work that out amongst ourselves because it does take time. It's if you provide comments as you have every right to, or if I provide comments, which I shouldn't have to now because I'm adding my stuff up front, it should go out to the board again. The board should get to look at it and say, do we agree with this or not? But it takes time, and if the board's willing to put the time in, I think we can do it up front. If the board's not, then we're kind of in a situation where we have to do it at a board meeting. And then go back and forth and have that deliberation then. So I think we have to decide how we want to get the full board feedback into the minutes.
Well, Donna,
so Mary,
I would like to comment this. You had a meeting with Mary and Joan about minutes, and I said, I do not want to participate.
Right.
You forced it on me. You came into a room I was in. You wanted to drag me into your room. I didn't want to do it. Donna, minutes are a legal requirement of the board. We have to do them. But they're not that big of a deal, except we legally have to do them. And we have to do them according to the law. And what we need to do would take about 15 minutes to 30 minutes. It is the month of November. I've been a supervisor for 11 months. I am still talking about minutes. We have way bigger fish to fry. Minutes are something we should just do, fulfill our legal requirement. And we met months and months ago before coronavirus. And we decided, okay, you want a little content, a sentence or two, I'm fine with that. We're not legally required to do it. What I don't want to get into is talking about these month after month. Our residents, they don't want to hear this. They want to hear, what are you doing for us? The minutes don't matter. In addition to that, I have a very difficult time justifying the time and the money spent on these. As Mary Opermolo just said, this is revision 5. What? It's just going way out of hand. I want to get to a point where we streamline them, they're simplified, we do them, we approve them, a little comment here and there, a little adjustment here and there. That's the way it should work. It should not work the way it's been working. I'm at my wit's end. I met with you. You wanted to meet with me again. I said, I can't, Donna. What is going to be different about our meeting? That's the definition of insanity. That I expected different. Wait a minute. I'm not done.
I'm sorry.
That I expect a different result to come out of the same conversation is the definition of insanity. I want to put this behind me. I've moved on to way more important things for our township. We just need to do it and get it out of the way. And by the way, everyone needs to remember, these are the minutes of the board. They're not the minutes of Mary Opermola. God bless her. She submits them. They're not the minutes of our township supervisor, or they're not the minutes of Joan. They're the board's minutes that we're legally required to put forth. Let's do them and be done with them and never discuss this again. I don't know how to get to that point.
Okay, so but Mary, you're not going to get to that point. And the reason you're not going to get to that point is because we have a fundamental disagreement on minutes. So you are perfectly, I mean, you have your opinion and you've been clear on what your opinion is. And I have my opinion, and I believe that I actually think we made a lot of progress in terms of they're much more streamlined than they were. So I think we have made progress, but we have to balance this. So we heard Nancy, and Nancy made a very good point. She wants to, Nancy, I'm agreeing with you, so hear me out. When you read the minutes, right, you want us to be able to comment on them, and you want to be able to have your comments addressed. That's going to require revisions. It's just a fact of life. So I agree with Nancy. That's the way I'm used to working. That's how I worked when I was working in industry. Someone put a set out. We went back and forth until we got a set that was mutually agreeable to everybody. But that takes time and it takes effort. And I'm willing to put that effort in. I'm happy to go back and forth with the board and have that conversation. But I am not, I can tell you right now, as long as I'm on this board, I'm not going to agree to minutes that tell us nothing, that say there was a discussion about the budget. We'll discuss it more next month. I will never agree to that. I want context. I want a set to put there.
If you want to work with the board to get to the point where we do the minutes where everybody's like, Donna, it's November. I've been on the board for 11 months. I cannot believe I'm even discussing this. It's got to go away. There's way more important things our residents want us to be discussing, addressing. It certainly isn't minutes.
That's your opinion. I'm telling you, I find the minutes very important, and I'm going to continue to. I'm in agreement with these minutes. I'm not the one who's saying that there's some comments. That was Nancy, and she has every right to say I want my comments addressed.
Okay, well then I would say let's just move to a vote. We approve or don't approve unless somebody else has a comment they want to throw in there, and let's move on to.
So yeah, I'd like to just make a quick comment, and then we can bring it to a vote. So from my perspective is I think both all of us here are kind of in agreement that we need to come to a process that makes sense, that everyone's comfortable with. And, my biggest gripe is, this 5 revisions and minutes should be easy and straightforward. But at the end of the day, we are a board of 5 members. We should be able to put in our comments and suggestions. And so, when I look at these minutes, I think, are they 100% where they need to be? maybe not, but they're like 95% there. They're not an egregious assault on, you know, I think that they're okay as they are. Where I would like to get to is that we can just, you know, before the meeting, we have our input on the minutes. So when we get here, we may not all be happy with exactly how they're written, but we can get to a point where we're more or less in agreement.
Right.
Right. And it's really not, you know, because if you think back to where they were to where they are now, they're much easier to read. There, you get to the point a lot quicker. And now we're really quibbling about details. Right. And at no point you know, so for me personally, I think are they 100% exactly how I want them? No, but they're a lot better than where they were. And I certainly do not want to spend any more resources on correcting them or getting them to a point where, you know, you know, I think I'm okay. I just think what we need to do, and maybe we need to think about it offline with a couple of supervisors to just say, how should this process go? Because I don't want, you know, I don't want our township secretary to have to keep going back and forth with every revision and have 10 different versions of this thing. Let's get to a point where we can work in a logical fashion and get this process done. So, you know, I would just like to move on from this discussion.
So would I. I don't want 5 revisions and 10 hours on minutes. I want to move past that. You know? Okay.
All right.
So,
I have a comment, Mary.
All right, John, what?
First off, with all due respect to Joe McVaugh and Mary Oppermull and Donna in preparing these minutes, I object to them strongly. They grossly lack the detail and the standards that I established in the first 8 years I was on the board. And the minutes are an important part of the meeting because people go back and look at those and find out what was discussed. And the minutes as they've been presented over the last months or so have been inadequate in detail, grossly inadequate. And certainly 2 supervisors campaigned on transparency. And the first opportunity you get to be transparent, you fail miserably by producing a set of minutes that's inadequate to describe what goes on with the board meetings. So my vote will be no.
Okay, if there's no more comments, let's take a vote on these approval of these minutes. All in favor, say aye.
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 That is Donna and David. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. And that is Nancy, Mary, and John. Okay, so the approval doesn't pass 2-3. Okay.
We have to go back and redo them. I mean, you just can't not have them. So there has to be another version prepared, and we're being drawn in 2 different directions. So John wants more detail. Mary, you want, I shouldn't speak for you. I'm assuming, Mary, you want less.
Nancy.
Nancy, you can speak for yourself. But we have, until we come to some kind of a understanding of what that middle ground is, and that's what I was working towards. Because I haven't made John happy, I haven't made Mary happy, I haven't made Nancy happy. We're going to continue to do this. So I think we have to give Mary O some direction, and I can't do it because I think these are fine. So please, somebody else give Mary O direction to find out what we do next.
Can you put that back together? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So we're over the minutes. Next are reports.
We're not over the minutes. We have to have minutes. We have to have.
Minutes.
Well, then they have to be redone, Donna. I agree, but the motion didn't carry. It failed 2-3. So they'll have to be redone and submitted at the next meeting. Okay.
Correct.
But let's move on to reports.
We have to give Mary O some direction because we have to understand the board is at a crossroad. We're pulling in different directions. John wants more detail. I'm trying to live in the middle ground with David, and Mary, I think you want less, and I'm not quite sure what Nancy wants. Probably more on the left side.
I want each person to have a voice without it taking 5 revisions. So the way that we I think that's going to work is that we try to stick to the PSAT's recommendation.
It's really that's the
That's
bottom
how they got
line.
to that point.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to go back to there, we have some feedback from Holly M. Fischel, and she is from PSAT, and she said, she went on by the things that have to be in there, and she talked about the sunshine laws require all minutes to include the date, the time, the location of the meeting, the names of the supervisors present, a summary of any official action or motion, the vote on any official action or motion, the names of anyone who testified before the board and the subject of their testimony. And we also believe that it should have, for the last one, we suggest including the name of anyone who provides public comment and the topic.
Right.
And beyond this is her words, not mine, it is beneficial to include a summary of the board's discussion to provide appropriate background for the minutes. That's exactly what I'm after. That's what I've been pushing for. A summary of the discussion, which means 1 or 2 sentences that puts it in some kind of context. This is her words. That's what she wants. And
I'm
that's
fine
what I'm.
with that. I'm fine with that. So let's take
So
it
am
up.
I. So am I. Okay, we already.
Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute, Mary. Mary, yeah.
Okay, they'll have to be redone. We already voted on this. Let's move on to reports. Dave, can you take the next item under reports? Thank you.
I make a motion that the board approve the October 2020 Treasurer's Report, which includes the following disbursements. The general fund with disbursements and transfers of $128,524.84. The Park and Recreation Fund with disbursements of $4,993.36. The Open Space Fund with disbursements of $6,330.74. The Capital Reserve Fund with disbursements of $33,603.90. The Highway Aid Fund with disbursements of $37,360.17. And the Fire Hydrant Fund with disbursements of $580.80. Leaving a balance in all funds totaling $894,034.59. Seconded by?
I second that.
Okay, thank you, Donna. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Okay, motion carries 5-0.
Okay, the zoning officer report. In the month of October, 9 permits were issued, $4,639.09 in building fees and $1,750 in miscellaneous fees were collected. 16 inspections were performed. There were 4 zoning issues reported. Some of them are ongoing issues. It looks like one might be new. Jeff or Joan, do you want to pick up on any that are new, or just if there's any changes to any of the issues?
These have been on before, but the 3327 Appleton Road, there was a hearing in court today, and Mark may have more information on this, but Max reached out to me and let me know that the judge found in our favor and fined Mr. DeFrancisco $500 for his violation. So that's a positive. The storage container that was on Banffshire, the owner did get a permit to place it on his property. And we're having some trouble with getting the grass mowed at 1833 New London Road because we thought a new owner took possession at the bankruptcy sale, but that fell through. So we're still working on having that. We may have to start mowing it and bill the banks again. And for Duncan Lane, I wasn't aware that there was a Chester company bamboo, Chester Co. Bamboo. I thought that was a typing area, but Jeff Vogel said that's actually a company who is working with the resident up there to clear some of the bamboo.
Good to know, because other people might need that. Okay. Any questions, comments on any of that? Okay. The PC did not hold a meeting in November. The HARB, Historical Commission Chairman Legassi will report on the November meeting. Paul?
Yeah, I'm muting.
There you go.
Everyone can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So we had a rather long meeting on Tuesday, November 10th. The first order of business was a review of the COA application for a permit for demolition for 3327 Appleton Road. This, of course, is the property Joan just referred to in the lawsuit. It was, I would describe it actually as a fairly thoughtful back and forth between the applicant's representative, who is a lawyer, Michael Gill, and the members of the HARB. And it remains an ongoing process. We need to look at several things before we can come to any judgment and make a recommendation to the supervisors concerning the appropriateness of the applicant's request. But at the moment, we need to be able to review a report that an engineering firm made for the applicant. This report was done some months ago, actually. We are hoping to have contractor cost information from the applicant and any other written materials. We had requested written materials prior to the meeting and did not have any prior to the meeting. They showed up during the meeting, which made any review of those materials really impossible. We also, once we review the applicant's engineering report, would like to arrange for a contractor or engineer to gain access to the building, probably in conjunction with Jeff Vogels, in order to get an independent understanding of what is in the engineer's report. We have a number of other things that we need to have in order to move along with this. And I could spend 20 minutes summarizing this, and I will not subject you all to that right now. It's ongoing, and you will be at some point receiving a report, obviously, from us when the supervisors have to undertake their review and make their decision. The historic resources map is all but done. We are waiting simply to determine a sensible address for one property with a historic ruin on it. And that property otherwise has no other structures on it. So that's being undertaken in conjunction with the township and 911, and Jeff is handling that. And once 911 resolves this, that will be put to bed. Nan Latimer and I paid a visit to the Churchill African Cemetery, and frankly, I was dismayed at what I saw. I'm not talking about any particular neglect or destruction. I'm simply talking about events that have occurred since my last visit 3 years ago, that we need to get in there and we need to clean up the cemetery out of respect for the people who are buried there. And while we are indeed waiting on research to determine that is in fact an abandoned burial ground, I think that's very likely to happen. And so we are talking now about making plans in the spring to do some concerted work. It will have to be small scale. It will not involve power equipment for fear of damaging any hidden grave markers. And grave markers in this case for poor families may mean stones, literally stones, not gravestones. So we want to go in with the greatest care and respect we can, but it was just upsetting to be there. I'm sorry I'm saying that, but it was. It can be, we can't get rid of the big trees, but there are fallen trees, there are brambles all over the place, and we can neaten it up and make it somewhat more respectable. And we will develop a project with time, but this will begin in the spring, and we expect it will take all summer.
Paul, I have a suggestion for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I can't speak for the FSA, but perhaps if they have time, they could include that with one of their community service projects to help.
Yeah, and that's a good idea. And we are also thinking that perhaps we could work with Boy Scouts, because we're going to be in a situation where, in fact, we're avoiding power tools, which is one of the limiting factors when working with younger participants. So we have to give this some thought, but we are more sharply focused on this than we were, shall we put it that way. So thanks for the suggestion, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Paul, for that cleanup, is this something that we would need an expert to come in and help us identify, say, historically significant locations where we don't want to accidentally destroy something of significance? Or are you comfortable with?
No, I'm comfortable. We're really talking about, at least initially, just going in carefully with rakes and loppers, because some of the vines are so sturdy, shall we say. And I want to apply vine killer to the cut stubs so that we are not setting ourselves up for any more repeat visits than we need to make. And basically what I envision us doing is cutting a kind of rough set of grid pathways on the property. It's not large, it's less than half an acre. And then that grid system will divide it into sections, and we'll simply attack a section at a time. We will emphasize those sections with visible headstones first, simply because it's an obvious area to work in. And then we will work our way to the outer edges of the property. I think actually it would be, everything that I'm saying would be easily understandable should any of the supervisors have a chance to make a visit. It's not a complicated thing. We're not talking about taking down any trees, but I do want to get dead trees on the ground out of there. You know, just get it to the point where we at least have a kind of bare woodland surface, because I think it's easy to avoid disrupting anything if we simply slow and steady. And it would be the sort of way you approach cleaning up around a perennial garden at the end of the summer or at the beginning of the spring. You don't want to damage anything, but it doesn't require any particular skill at this point to go in there and do what I'm talking about. I mean, I feel very comfortable with what I'm talking about. We're talking about mid-range gardening skills. It's not something.
We don't have to worry about disturbing.
We're not going to disrupt the ground. And the biggest decision that we have made that's important is recognizing that we cannot make use of any kind of power tools like a brush hog or anything of that sort to go in there. This has to be done by hand, because frankly, we don't know whether a stone that is protruding from the ground is a stone or a rough grave marker, or perhaps even a half-buried headstone. So in order to do this, it's just, like I said, it's kind of like cleaning up a perennial bed. You just don't want to do any damage, and you're just taking your time, which is why we believe it will take all summer working on weekends. So, but we've talked about this in generalities, and my visit with Nan was, the words I used in our meeting it was dismaying. It was just something I was not happy seeing. It was not perfect when I was there almost 4 years ago, but it's much worse now. Somebody simply wishing to come and visit a gravesite has to deal with various briars in their way. This is just not right. It's just not right. So, so if there, I'll move on if there are no more issues with this. This is a serious topic. I'm willing to entertain further questions, but I'll move on. We don't envision doing any probably public talks, historical talks with New London till next fall now at the earliest, given the way things have been going with COVID and the kind of restrictions that are again coming our way. But we will continue to post any and every interesting talk that we see online, and we're doing them through the Historical Commission's Facebook page, and also posting them on a couple other local Facebook pages. And longer term, we're going to do a number of things that are focused on generally raising township awareness of the history locally. One of the things that was my takeaway from sitting in some of the task force meetings was that there really is not, for most people, much of a sense of what is involved in our township history and why we have buildings we consider to be historic resources as historic resources. We will help, we'll continue to expand as best we can our historical website in this, and Dave and I have been talking with respect to the township website about the role the current historical commission website will play, and we are going to leave the current historical commission website in place as a separate website, and we will maintain the responsibility for managing that. I think Dave thought we were doing a decent enough job for us to continue doing that, and frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if Dave was happy to have a little less to worry about. And finally, in terms of increasing awareness of township history, we've been, I was talking with Chuck Phillips, and we discussed it further at the meeting, and we'd like to see what we can do to just get, little bits and pieces of historical information into various local venues like wineries and that sort of thing, either a flyer that somebody can take away, or maybe a nice montage of historic postcards that give you a vision of what various parts of the township looked like 100 years ago. The postcards aren't under copyright, so we're not putting anybody in danger by playing around with them and figuring out what we can do with them. And given that my background is in publishing, I am well aware of copyright issues, so be careful about that. And I think in broad summary, that's pretty much it. Any questions?
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome. Oh, one more thing. If you will permit me, in another room, there's a rather lively family Zoom going on involving my dad. And so I'm going to disappear from the meeting. I wish you all the best. And I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving and a good night. So I looked at the agenda. I don't think there's anything where you need my input or will be looking for me for any comment whatsoever. So I feel like I'm not leaving you in the lurch. Take care of you all.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you too. Mary, I'll take the next one. Is that okay?
Sure, thank you.
So the Park Recreation and Open Space Board Chair Sachs will provide a brief update of the PRO's November 4th meeting. So to Chairman Sachs.
Yep, I'm here. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Greg.
Hi. So, all right. First topic, signage for Crossing Park. We've made some progress there. The 4 total signs were ordered and have come in. I don't believe they've been installed the last I checked. We have two signs that are going to be going in on 896 on both directions. They're going to be brown arrow signs with white lettering, a 5-inch font. And then there's going to be two signs going in on Parsons and Good Hope Road, kind of back to back. So hopefully we will be getting those installed soon. I don't know if Jeff has any additional input on a time frame for that, but I know they did come in.
They are in, sir. London Britain currently has the two signs. We supplied them with a post. They had to do a first call. So I'm going to say hopefully by the week after Thanksgiving, it will be up. And then I'm going to work with Jim DeRazio for the same thing in front of Armin Frankhart's house. And I did get permission from him to put the sign on his property.
Great. Okay. All right. So next was the healing garden. Unfortunately, we kind of had a setback with what the plan was there. We were working with the UOD professor, and due to some personal situations, he's not going to be able to proceed with installing his trial garden there. So I've kind of gone to a plan B. I scheduled a meeting with a man, his name is Dan Maffey, I believe it is. His firm is Maffey Landscape Design, and he came highly recommended by a contact of mine. And we're going to be meeting next week. And he's done projects like this before. He does stuff with townships. He's out of Kennett Square, and he does, private residents and all sorts of stuff. He's done some work with Longwood Gardens as well. So if you want to look up his website, it's Maffey Landscape Design is the name of his firm. So that's where we're at with that right now.
So Greg, before you go on, can you talk a little bit about what your thoughts are for this healing garden? Is it something that's sort of like a sustainable, garden where we're not maintaining it all the time, or what's your thoughts where we're going to go with that?
Yeah, the goal is to be a low maintenance native plant garden. The way, and I'm not, I'm a gardener, but I'm not a professional landscape designer. But the way I see it is kind of a mix of perennials and grasses. Probably going to be mostly short stuff since it's, a pretty small garden. You don't want anything growing too big there. But this Dan Maffey, he's hopefully going to help out with the design and, kind of just the whole process. Because that's kind of where we were looking for help. We've talked to volunteers as far as getting that installed, and he's cool with helping out and, helping out with guidance and that type of thing. But yeah, we're looking for something low maintenance. It's gonna, after the first year or two, it's gonna take a little bit of effort to, keep the weeds down, get them watered. But, once it's established, the goal is just it's gonna be a perennial garden that won't take much effort once they're kind of established, and they'll keep the weeds out of the gardens. So that's the plan, at least. I'll have more detail once I meet with him. And that's going to be, again, next week. So.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. So the PICO grant, our board member, Paul Overton, applied for this grant. And that was for the Banffshire Bridge. So we completed the application. There was a total of 12 applications, and from what he said, there will be 3 grants that will be awarded. So the grants are awarded in the spring. So we'll hear back from them on that. Hopefully we'll get that. So the boardwalk, there's been issues with the boardwalks down in Crossan, down near the bridge. This is the issues are basically coming from water, heavy rains and water washing out the boardwalks during storms. Jim, our vice chair, spoke with the original scout who installed these boardwalks, and he's thankfully going to replace these, or he says once he gets back from college, he's away at Penn State right now, he's going to replace them when he gets back, and hopefully kind of install a better system where they're, you know, raised up a little more to avoid being washed away again. So hopefully we'll be able to get him to kind of work on that and not run into this issue again. His brother, Ryan, is another Eagle Scout who's in the process of putting together a presentation for us on a project, which is basically installing some bluebird boxes at Crossin, as well as some tree plantings in various spots, some around the parking lots to provide some shade for parking, and a couple other spots around the park. So we expect him to kind of present his plan to the pro board soon, and then we'll take it from there. As far as the dog park, we looked at the results of the comprehensive plan survey. I jotted down the numbers here, and it came back basic. I mean, it wasn't, the question was kind of worded where it doesn't get too much detail, but it came back, you know, mostly people thought it was a not important issue. So, you know, in discussion with the board, we kind of are at the point where we recommend that we don't proceed with at least installing the dog park, just by, you know, what the community has responded. Although we, you know, if it came up as something that an Eagle Scout would be willing to do, where it would save costs for the township, you know, it still could be something that would be beneficial to residents, but, you know, we don't want to spend too much on the cost when it seems that the majority of the respondents to the survey didn't seem like it was a big need in the township. Let's see what else we got here. That's pretty much all I have for right now. I don't know if any other board members wanted to chime in or are here. If Paul or Jim or anybody else is on the call, but otherwise, that's all the updates I have for the moment.
Thanks, Greg. Is there anyone else in the PRO that wants to make a comment?
Nope, nothing for me.
Okay, go, Paul. Did you say yes?
No, I said nothing at this time.
Okay, great. Okay, all right. All right, then. Once again, Greg, thanks again. It sounds like you're progressing. Lots of. I'm sorry.
Don, I have a comment just on the dog park.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, John.
I mean, the dog park up in London Grove is fairly successful and fairly well used. The maintenance is the big issue, but the reason it generates probably so much use is that it's immediately adjacent to West Grove, which is a whole little town up there with small backyards, and we don't have that in Franklin. So, you know, the same need down in Franklin probably isn't there because people have so much more space for their animals. That could be the reason why you're getting that response back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would make sense.
But maintenance is a big issue with it. Just not getting it constructed. They've had lots of trouble maintaining it. So.
Yeah, I spoke with somebody over in that township, and they did, you know, say they do run into issues. It's very popular. They get a lot of complaints just here and there about all sorts of things. I mean, it's, you know, it's definitely a nice thing to have, but you know, like I said, I don't know how needed it is in our township.
Yeah, their biggest issue is mud. So you really would probably need to generate probably about 4 discrete areas and just rotate them in use.
Right. Yeah.
That's all I got on it.
All right. Well, thank
I
you.
think that's a good thing about the survey is if our residents aren't that interested, there are other things we can do. And as you said, Greg, we can always revisit it whenever we need to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the space we were looking at is just a grassed field right now. So there's nothing doing there. So
It's not going anywhere. I'll still be there.
exactly.
All right. Thanks again. So I'm going to move on. So I think our papers were changed that there is no significant update on the comprehensive plan is what I have. I did have a question. I don't know if anyone on the line could answer this for me. We did have Joan, you did put a page in our books, talked about what's going on with the comprehensive plan. And item 2 there talked about some priority subjects. And one that was there was called resource protection as green infrastructure. I'm just curious. I don't know what that means. Could anyone explain that to me? That's part of the comprehensive plan. You can read it.
Is Dan on the line?
No, Nan is not attending this meeting.
So this, Paul, just from my memories, we changed the title of that because it was a little bit confusing, but it was talking about things like stormwater management and promoting natural landscapes instead of like Greg's doing. Instead of having a lawn, you do some sort of rain garden in your yard, and giving a little education class on that or something like that, or a riparian buffer education. Half the township probably doesn't know what a riparian buffer is. And so if we just do some education on that and hook them up with the Tree Vitalize program, we could probably get a lot of trees planted along our streams. It's that type of resource.
That makes perfect sense. Thanks, Paul. Thank you so much.
I think we did talk about changing the title, but
yeah, it's not intuitive. I mean, now that you say it, it's clear, right? Resource protection, right? You're trying to protect our natural resource as green infrastructure. So you're talking about, like you said, rain gardens, etc. So
and another one was providing meadows for migrating birds and insects, stuff like that. Another example.
Got it. Okay, thank you. All right, I'm just see what else I have. And then if there's any other comments on the comprehensive plan, any discussion? Okay, not hearing anything. I'm going to go to the next item, Mary. And that's Jim Germain will offer a report on the Franklin Township Sportsman's Association. Jim, are you here?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Hi, Jim. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, real short report this month. Between the combination of the balmy days in the 70s and the rainy weeks, there was some hunting, but not a whole lot. 2 additional deer have been taken for a total of 4 deer harvested so far. No problems in any of the preserves that I'm aware of to date. We did have a road cleanup on this past Sunday, the 15th, Chesterville Road and Creek Road. And right now, for total service hours since July of 93.5 hours. No other areas to report on right now other than the rut for the deer is in full swing right now. So just beware when you're driving out around through the township that these deer are just running like crazy right now.
Thanks, Jim. Any questions for Jim?
Jim, John Arbach. Jim, you did a cleanup on Creek Road. Did you see any evidence of people discarding trash bags or just litter?
John, I did not attend the event because I was out of state. So I don't know what they saw. I didn't get any.
We've had issues there before with people leaving full trash bags there. So
yeah, I understand. I guess you'll know better. I believe the township picks up the trash there in front of Banishire parking lot that was collected. So be able to tell by just the volume that's picked up at that pile.
Yeah.
Yes, we do pick up the trash, and I just wanted to let you know, we did get a phone call today about 6 bags of trash on Creek Road, which which will be picked up if it hasn't already.
You're
That's
you're
it.
saying there was more trash than what they picked up, Jeff?
Paul, to be honest, I'm sure the FSA did pick up stuff. This seems like it was a very recent event, like
Yeah.
within the past day or so.
So somebody dumped some bags.
Correct, sir. And I'm pretty sure Mr. DeRazio, it looks like he's on, but it looks like, I'm
So-
pretty sure he picked it up today. If he didn't, it will tomorrow.
So I know, Mary, you're not taking public comment, but with this topic, there are some telephone pole cutoffs there, creosote, and that's considered a hazardous material, and I would encourage the township to pick that up as well.
You got it.
Somebody dumped maybe 15 or 20 cutoffs.
I'll look for it, sir. And if I can, I'll call you.
It's where the poplar tree fell across the stream.
You got it.
Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you for that, and I'm going to turn it over to John. I think you have the next item, John.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Patrick Briner, will provide an analysis of the robotics process. So I did get a chance to look at it this afternoon, but not long. A password didn't work till late in the day, but I do have some comments when we get to the end of the presentation. So Patrick, if you're on the phone, if you're on the line, you could start your presentation.
Sure. Hi, everybody. How are you? Very nice to meet everyone. So I'm just going to share my screen. Everyone can hear me, yeah?
Yeah.
All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Share my screen here. That should look pretty familiar, hey?
Yep.
All right, rock and roll. Let me just move some things around. Okay, can you see my cursor also or no?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. All right, so just kind of wanted to show everybody around our platform here. I know Jeff is familiar with it. I know when Brendan presented the first 5 free a couple of months back, a lot of you saw something that looked like this, but obviously just a few of these roads, not the whole kit and caboodle. So here we are. We got a couple things here. We got the name of the township, obviously, the name of the project. Your overall network score is a 2.04, which is quite good. Again, this is rated on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the best, 5 being the worst. So you can see here the dark green roads are your 1s, and I'll just turn them on here. So those are your 1s. Those are probably going to be your newest roads, your roads in the best condition. Your 2s might be a couple years old, maybe some minor signs of distress. Your 3s are going to be your roads that are sort of maybe on the edge, might need some attention in order to really ensure the structural integrity. They're basically, if they're not tended to, they might slide down into the area of the 4s pretty quickly. You only have a couple of those, so you can see them flashing there because I'm turning them on and off. And I don't think you have any 5s at all, which is great. 5 is the worst. 5 basically means the road is nearly destroyed and almost certainly needs to be replaced. So again, a network score of 2.04 is very good, I'd say, compared to other customers in your neighborhood, like in Pennsylvania and in the Northeast in general. This is a very good score. We see a lot of 2.5s, we see a lot of 2.7s and 3s and stuff like that. So you're in pretty good shape. Here you got your center line mileage. You got 37 miles of road on this assessment. I'm not going to mess with the road report analysis. This just kind of breaks down by road type, which roads are showing up as 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s, but pretty much all your roads are flagged as residential. So you don't have much to look at there in terms of breaking it down by road type. You're not dealing with like connectors or tertiary roads or anything like that. So now another thing we can do, which I think is pretty cool, I'm going to turn all of this off. We're going to turn on the points here. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to see all our individual points by 1, 2, 3, 4, and just a couple of 5s here. And so basically,
What's the point? Can you just remind us what a point is?
yeah, sure, I'm about to zoom in on that right now. So every dot on this map represents a point that is 3 meters or approximately 10 feet from the point next to it. So if I click on any one of these, it actually brings up this container on the right. I'm just going to close this, and you can actually see the rating of that individual point. You can see a photo of your road. This is kind of a weird one. See a photo of your road. You can see the nearest address. You can see the date that it was taken, a northing and easting geolocation point, and a direction of travel. So as Jeff was doing these collections and as we were talking about this stuff, and I know when Brendan showed him the assessment of the 5 miles free, it sounded like a lot of these little tools were going to be pretty useful, where if you need to send out, if you need to send your contracting company out to fix something, you can send them actually a photo of this with, we have a screenshot tool over here. So you can actually take a screenshot and say, we need this section of road replaced. It shows you on the map where you're at, shows you the rating, shows you the nearest address, again, northing and easting, date and time, and direction of travel. You can actually print this or download this and attach this to a work order. And Jeff, you said that might actually be pretty useful for you, yeah?
Correct.
Cool. Jeff, is there anything that you want to see in here, or that you'd like to share? I know a couple of people have gotten to poke around in here a little bit, but I get the impression that you'll be using it the most. Is that right?
I would say I would be using it, and then our road engineer and the township manager too. So, and I'm sure the board will as well, which I encourage them to do so.
Sure. Yeah, and so I guess we're looking at your network here. You have, again, a pretty granular view of what your network looks like. If you want to look at a larger photo of this thing at any of these points, you can just click this magnifying glass. You can shrink it again. If you want a very large photo, you can actually click this. This will actually open up a new tab with a high res version of this that you can then zoom in on for some very, very granular detail of that individual photo. And if you're curious, you can actually, clicked on the wrong one there. There we go. So you just press the play button and this will just drive you straight down the whole road. And if that's not going fast enough for you, you can click through using the next button. This is probably going pretty fast for Zoom to pick up on, but as you go through, you can see it. You can see the rating change. You can see the nearest address update. You can see obviously the photo update as well. So this,
Jeff, excuse me,
yeah,
Patrick, it's great. I guess my question then is, will we use this when we decide which roads we're going to prioritize next year? Does it align with what, Jeff, what you thought we would need to work on next year?
I think that this helps justify some of the things that we have been looking at. So I feel good about that. And robotics will be the first to tell you, and I will too. This is an important tool in the toolbox. It's not the entire toolbox. But short answer is yes. I think we need to use this as part of our consideration for next year's road program.
Well, I see Gypsy Hills coming up as needing work, which we've all talked about. So that's right in line.
And this is going to be such a time saver. As much as we try and keep 37 miles of roads in our head, it's impossible. We do the best job we can, but again, this is going to be a good tool.
And I know, Jeff, we had spoken about the embedded maps. So one thing that's really cool about this is if a citizen calls in with a complaint, you can actually type in the address. For instance, you just mentioned Gypsy Hill Road. I don't know if there's a particular address anybody would like to see. I can just type it into the search bar here. We can see right out in front of that house and see what the road looks like. So if there's a citizen complaint, which you can do, especially for Jeff, if you're fielding a call in the office and they say, hey, at the corner of this and this, we're seeing a lot of potholes. Jeff, what you can do obviously is then you can look up that location on the map here. You can look at some photos, and obviously we have sort of a snapshot in time here. So you're going to get the photos from early October. So if they call in February to complain, then you might not be looking at the most recent photos, but you are looking at a distress that if you're getting a citizen complaint in you're still going to be able to look back at October's photos and see that distress, at least in development. So Jeff, you'll be able to kind of diagnose before you leave the office, get an idea of what tools you might need if you need to make any repairs or do any maintenance, anything like that. You can actually get a good idea of what you're looking at before you head out in your truck.
Great.
Yeah. That bag all winter.
So do you envision, Patrick, that our residents will be able to look at this and then just, see the state of our roads at any given time, and also be able to see what we're planning on fixing when, and kind of have a more strategic, we share a more strategic view of what we've got going on?
Sure, yeah. And I had been in touch with Dave a little bit. Dave was curious. I know about how to sort of nest the embeddable map in the website somewhere. Dave, have you had any success with that? Oh, hang on.
You there, Dave?
Yeah, I just shook my head. No, not yet. We had to work with Civic Plus to get this embedded if we were going to get it embedded.
Okay, cool. If you need any help, we are some combination of our engineers and marketing department should be able to help you with that. So as you move forward and try to embed it in your website, let us know what kind of snags you run into, and we'll do the best we can to help you. So yeah, in answer to your question, basically the idea, as I understand it from Jeff and Dave, is that this would be embedded on a page in the website where citizens can actually click around and look at this whole map, and you'll then be able to say justify paving projects, justify maintenance projects, and just sort of increase transparency in general, which is a pretty cool concept. I like that a lot.
I think sometimes residents think that there's certain roads that get paved because of preference or whatever, and I think this takes away some of that and makes it a little bit more objective looking, which it is.
That's part of
I also like the idea that it only highlights the roads that are responsibilities. And I know sometimes residents, if they don't know, they'll think a certain, like Chesterville Road is our road and it's a mess. Here it's clear that these are our roads. The roads that we are responsible for will be highlighted in the website if Dave can figure out how to make that happen. So I think that's also another thing that will be transparent and make sure they're clear where we actually have an ability to impact a change.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
Patrick, I have a question for you.
Sure.
I understand this is another tool in our toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
What about what's under the road surface? I mean, you're looking at the top surface, but sometimes there's issues under the road. Mm-hmm. What do you recommend? I mean, where do you go with that?
So obviously our AI model and our whole model is limited to imagery, right? And to what the AI model can do in terms of sort of reviewing and rating that imagery. So we're obviously not going to going to be giving you the same sort of data that, say, like a laser van would give you, but that scan would cost like $100,000, or I don't know what it would cost for your particular municipality, but those scans tend to be super expensive. So we call ourselves a decision assist company. So what we try to give you is the most granular information that we can, given the limitations of the technology, and then essentially we rely on the expertise of the boots on the ground, where we give you as much information as we possibly can, and really the only way to find out if there's something subsurface is for someone to go out and look at it. The good thing about this technology is that, I mean, really a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And you have thousands of pictures here. So what I'm hoping, and what I think is true, is that Jeff is going to get a good idea of which roads are suffering and need attention just in general. And then he'll be able to sort of more surgically go out and diagnose what the exact distresses are, or what the causes of those distresses are. We're able to diagnose surface distresses. We're not necessarily able to diagnose the how and the why. But the surface distress definitely gives us a clue of where to look, and maybe what to look for to do a diagnosis, and then also plan a repair.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I look at this is it's a good tool for us to quickly rank order our roads, worst to best, and then say, okay, Jeff, let's go take a look at the bottom 5 roads and prioritize those, right? And it kind of, in my mind, establishes our road program, and the caveat is we know roads blow up. Winter comes and a road blows up that you didn't foresee, but it gives us at least a loose approximation of what the next couple of years are going to look like in our road program.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
And I think that's really where the quality is. And what I would anticipate if as this board uses this tool throughout our 2021 road program, in 2-3 years, when we do this again, or if we do this again, we can see the upgrades, right? And see exactly where we are. Because I think one of my criticisms was, well, how do you know you're in front of the maintenance curve, right? And there's a couple of ways to do that, and this kind of helps us as a visual tool. This gives us hey, we're not in bad shape. There's some roads that need immediate attention, but we're actually in better shape than we thought. And we can rank order these roads and really pinpoint where we want to work. So I'm pretty impressed with this. And I think that it's going to be a pretty valuable tool this year and moving forward. So I appreciate it.
I agree with you, Dave, 100%. This is a very valuable tool. It at least allows us to head right out and look at the roads that are on the surface showing distress, and then take it from there. Is there distress coming from underneath?
Turn out your light.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a wonderful tool.
Awesome.
Also, once we have those benchmarks, we can say, oh, in 2020, we had a rating of 2.04. In 2021, we spent X amount of money. We had a rating of whatever, 2.5. So what's, how are we correlate? Is there a way to correlate what we're spending with the value of our roads? And is there a way to make sure that we're spending wisely, that the roads are holding up at the rate that we expected them to? So it just gives you more data instead of kind of having to guess, which is, part of it is an art, part of it's science, part of it's art. And so it's nice to have a little bit more science involved in it. And to be able to look and have a historical view.
Great.
Well, I would like to say too, any residents that are listening, roads and the repair of them, the repaving of them is very, very expensive, which is why we are putting so much effort into getting the best value for our dollar. And this is another tool that will help us, I think, spend our dollars wisely. It's just we have to have good roads, and this is a way that we can go forward with it.
And as I understand it, Brendan, if you're there as well, as I understand it, I think a sort of good rule of thumb, this is not, of course, a hard and fast rule, but a good rule of thumb is that to repave a mile of road generally costs about $1 million. Jeff, am I sort of in the ballpark with that? Or am I way off?
It seems a bit high. I can't give you an exact number right now.
I heard $100,000.
Yeah. 100,000?
Yeah, which is still a lot of money.
It's still a lot of money. Okay, I'm not in sales. I might have blown that one completely. I apologize.
Quite a bit.
But bottom line, Patrick, is townships, probably their biggest bill is road repair and road maintenance. And this is a wonderful tool to help us go after the roads that need repair now so that they don't bump into the 5 category.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, hopefully this will help you sort of diagnose if there's a road. One thing we're seeing more and more of is people actually focusing on these light greens, these 2s that might have some really minor cracking. And I know Jeff and I have talked when we did our onboarding like a month ago when Jeff and I first met. He mentioned that
put that down
pretty
now.
substantial crack seal program, which is great. What that means is you can apply some really basic maintenance, some pretty comparatively inexpensive maintenance
I know
to
you want to
roads
listen
that are
to Harry
relatively
Potter.
new, but are showing signs of early distress, and you can extend their life
Hear anything I said?
immeasurably. Not immeasurably, substantially. You can extend their life
And
substantially.
bottom line, we save money
Save
and
some
we have
money.
better roads. And that's
And
the
keep
goal.
people safe. Yep.
Yeah. Keep people safe. Thank you.
All right, I have a few comments. Certainly, I agree with David that this is an excellent tool that provides an overview of the whole road system that we really didn't have before. Although certainly Jeff and Jim DeRazio have that vision. They see what these roads are about, but this allows the information to be shared with all the supervisors and, of course, any resident who can look at the map. And I think the way I look at it, Roadbotics provides an excellent overview of the surface condition of all Franklin Township roads using this color-coded system indicating surface condition. And I emphasize surface condition because surface condition is the first indicator of a road's condition. So this program does give us that. It gives us an overview of how the roads, which ones have higher or lower quality surface conditions in comparison to all of them. So I think that's the other point that it provides is the comparison. But the township's typical overview of the road program, road conditions, is a continuous process that's ongoing for the entire year. I mean, Jeff and Jim travel the roads every day and are observant to all conditions. That's far different from what we typically look at as we drive around. As they're always focused on infrastructure conditions. Therefore, they're continuously collecting information during the course of the year. So that's the bulk of the program is what they see. And of course, the typical detailed field observation occurs after winter, consists of walking the road slowly, looking down, taking notes and photos. There's no substitute for this detailed examination. Roadbotics is a very useful tool. It's additive to our current process. So I think it's a plus for what we're doing. But it doesn't indicate the road crown, the stormwater collection and conveyance issues, possible indicators of surface defects. And that's really experience-based to be able to look at a road and say, I'm suspicious of the subsurface conditions. And I think Jim and Jeff have that ability to look at it. And of course, if they need to confirm that, they could always do some coring. So to answer Mary's question, coring is the answer when you're not sure. So I think it's a useful tool, but it's not a replacement for what we're doing. It's an enhancement to what we're doing I did look at the map for a very short period of time this afternoon. And in the yellow area, well, in what I consider roads that have defects or anything yellow or orange are ripe for looking at, there are 20 segments, there are 20 roads with segments on it that are in the yellow and orange category. I think only 4 of them are what I would consider through roads. Most of the others are all neighborhood roads. The through roads would be Parsons, Gypsy Hill, Old Schoolhouse Road, and Churchill Road, Hess Mill Road. They're roads I would consider feeders. All the others are neighborhood roads, which don't degrade as quickly as the feeder roads. So I think this thing gives us the opportunity to focus on the roads that could degrade the fastest. So, by no means are we in the overall score is encouraging, but there's still lots of work out there in front of us. So,
Patrick?
I'll send this out to the board so you can see what I've collected, but I only did it in about 10 or 15 minutes here a little while ago. So it requires some additional inspection. Jeff and Jim will do that, I'm sure. So anyway, I think it's an enhancement to our program because it provides the ability for other people to see the overall picture, which we couldn't do before.
So Patrick, a question. If we look at the orange and yellow roads, is there a way to know how many miles that is?
Sure is. And so this adds up the total centerline feet.
There it is right there.
Yep. And then it gives you the average rating of all those segments combined, gives you a list of all those segments with each individual average score, each individual total length. And then you can actually export that as a CSV, which you can plug into a spreadsheet there.
You can put it into Excel, yeah. Well, that's impressive.
And there are a couple different ways you can do that. So this is our dynamic segmentation tool. So I just used the click and drag feature. But let's say you want to get a little more granular. You want to know just about, say, this road down here, and the click and drag isn't going to work because it might catch some extraneous segments. So here we're just clicking the associated segments. And actually you can see as I click on and off, you can see it adding up and subtracting on the right. Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive. That's
yeah. So this we found this to be a very useful tool. We actually, one of the cool things about Roadbotics is that, you know, we're not sitting on our hands over here. We are making new tools all the time. And we developed this tool and developed this CSV export button, and you know, all this stuff has been developed based on customer feedback, and it's all new since January. So the more feedback we get from our customers about, hey, I wish I could do this on the platform, can I do this? Sometimes the answer is yes, I can just show you how to do it, because it might not be as intuitive as we want it to be. We want it to be intuitive, but the tool might be buried somewhere. If the question is, or if the answer to the question, can I do this on your platform, is no, then I take that directly to our product team, and they put it sort of in a queue of tools that they want to develop. And the more feedback we get about, you know, say we hear the same thing from half a dozen different municipalities, that moves up on our development list, obviously. But everything goes in the queue.
well, the data is actually there, so you could generate a query that could produce the data you want out of the database, much like you know, the major database programs.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so what we have here is, again, this dynamic segmentation tool. Since we just have the 3s and the 4s on the map here, it's easy to click and drag and just select those. If we just want the 4s, we do the same thing. So your 4s, you have just a little over a half a mile of roads that are in that are in really pretty critical shape, I would say. So that's pretty good. You got a lot. You do have a good number of roads that are sort of on the edge here. These yellow roads are sort of teetering generally, I would say. But in terms of roads that are like absolutely critical, it looks like you've only got about 2,900 feet, 3,000 feet.
Yeah. Well, I think you got to also temper that and look at the roads to get the most traffic and work on those on a priority probably.
And like I said, we're a decision assist company. We're not going to tell you what to do. That's not our area of expertise. We leave that up to the folks who do that for a living, but we want to make that job easier if we can. So that's our goal.
Just a couple of comments on cost. There was some discussion earlier about the cost per mile, and that's highly variable depending on what you have to do with the road. If you just have to mill and overlay it, then it's a fairly easy estimate. But if you have to do drainage work or subsurface work or recrown the thing, then things get pricier. So it's hard to put a number on it. I think Jeff could probably give you an average number, but it's pretty variable. So to just put a number on any of these roads without any inspection probably would not give you a valid answer.
That makes sense. Can I help anybody with anything else here?
Thank you, Patrick.
Oh, thank you, Patrick. Great presentation. Thank you.
Nice meeting you all.
Thank you, Patrick and Brendan.
Of course.
Bye, guys. Good to see everybody. Have a great holiday.
Yeah, thank you. You also.
Bye, everyone. Take it easy.
All right. Bye, Patrick. All right. John, can
We
you
on the next item here, Mary?
John, can you introduce Mark, please?
All right, the next item is Solicitor Mark Thompson will provide an update of the Lexington Point situation.
Thank you.
Mark, and the board will probably ask questions as you go along.
Thank you, John. I did ask our sewage planning consultant, Stan Corbett, to phone in. Stan, are you there?
Yes, I'm on the line, Mark.
Okay. As the board is aware, the Lexington Point development was originally designed to have a mechanical treatment system to serve the proposed 38 houses in that development. That system was never built. 6 of the houses have been constructed, and the township has been in basically constant discussion with the developer over the last several years regarding an update to that system, basically a redesign of the original system that the developer had agreed to in 2007, and that is ongoing right now. As part of that original 2007 approval for the development and the original system, we had executed with the developer an agreement to construct that particular system. Because there's no intent to utilize that agreement or utilize that system, we needed to renegotiate that agreement essentially before the developer could move forward with a revision to the system. And Stan, step in if I'm missing anything. Basically, the system has been, or at least the concept of the system, is we are all in agreement with the concept. Is that right, Stan?
Yes. Yeah. Technically, we're the design is still progressing, but technically, we're heading down a path that we're comfortable with on behalf of the township.
And right now, we're waiting for the specific design specifications. That's probably the next step, the next general step that Stan will have to review in order for them to continue down this path. Now, They had requested, the developer, there is an area that is going to be used for infiltration. And the developer had requested the ability to basically plant a cover crop in that area for the winter. It will need to be replanted and replowed with the final cover crop that is planned to be used for the system. But in order to allow that to proceed, we required them to agree to basically the form of the agreement, a revised agreement to construct the new wastewater treatment system. We have been negotiating with the developer since July. The board had contemplated this back last August. So we have been waiting for the developer for a little over a year for them to react to the agreement that Stan and I had drafted last August. Since this August and through tonight, we had engaged in that negotiation, and as the board knows, we are at a point where the developer has basically, well, they have agreed to all of the requirements that Stan and I had placed in this agreement. We essentially have the same agreement that was in place and actually still remains in place for the previous system, with just a slight modification. The capital reserve account for the system, which was originally to be funded up front, or I think it was every 6 months there was a funding mechanism. We are proposing to agree to allow that to be funded as each house is constructed. So when the developer comes in for construction or for a permit, they will need to place 1/38 essentially of the funds in that account. All of the accounts, the capital reserve, all of the improvements will be, are going to be secured with financial security. We have all of the financial security for the previous system, and the developer basically, we have some adjustments. We have some exhibits that need to be finalized, but we wanted to make sure that we were on the same page with Lexington Point before they started in earnest down the pathway to construct their revised system. And we think we're at that point right now. In addition to the agreement, one of the more important exhibits is a milestone exhibit that tracks as they build each house. Basically, they stopped at the 6th house because when they moved to the 7th house under the last agreement, they were going to have to take some actions to build that the previously approved system. They didn't want to do that, so that's why the construction has been halted. Now, in order to move forward with the 7th house under the new agreement, they're going to have to take some significant steps in earnest to move forward with the new system. We don't want to put the township in a position where the developer moves down the road building houses and we still don't have a system to serve them, and we're still in pump and haul. So the revised milestones, again, that Stan and I had put together, the developer is in agreement with those. Stan, is there anything I'm missing that you wanted to add?
No, I think you summarized it very well, Mark.
So what is before the board tonight? The developer signed this revised agreement. Now, the agreement isn't, we don't have all of the exhibits to the agreement. So I cannot have a finalized agreement that would be recorded against the property. But the language in this agreement and the language in the milestones, I would like, Stan and I would both recommend that the board approve the form of this agreement. And I think this was sent to you 2 weeks ago, and we have discussed it. The developer has signed it. And what I'm looking to do is so that we can, while we collect those exhibits, which would be the approval of the specifications, there's going to be new financial security in place. we can at least say to the developer that we have agreed on the language in this revised agreement, so we don't have to bother with any further negotiation. So that's what the recommendation is for the board tonight, to approve the form of the revised agreement as well as the revised milestones.
So Mark, what I'd like to do, because I actually did read the contract, and it wasn't as hard to read as I thought it was going to be, but I would like the public, our residents, to realize that there's multiple funds that you have being funded by the developer in this, and I can list them, but it'd be helpful if you and Stan would just briefly go through them to make sure that the public is very much aware that you've tried to cover every aspect that you could. So I'll just briefly go through the 5 I'm aware of. Maybe you guys can comment. So one is a system financial security fund. So there's money in a fund to actually build the thing. Then there's a capital reserve account, and that's money to take care of anything breaks that it's filled. And then there's an operating reserve account that I'm guessing that if something goes wrong when it's operating, that's there. There's a professional review fees fund, and there's also a land development fund. So just so folks know, if you don't mind, just maybe you or Stan, just to summarize for everybody that we have these multiple things out there, and that they're being funded appropriately so that the township's protected and the residents are protected.
Well, let me just start with the last one. You had mentioned the land development financial security. We with any land development in any township, we're required to ultimately the facilities if something were to happen to the developer. And so given that is the case, the MPC allows municipalities to basically require financial security for all of the development. And that includes financial security for the construction of the treatment facility and the roads and the bushes and trees and the curbs, everything associated with this development. So we have that fund established. We also have a separate fund for financially securing the construction of the sewage facility. We have financial security. We will have new financial security. There's going to be new financial security because we have to recalculate what this system is going to cost. So we're going to have financial security for capital improvement fund, in addition to the concept of that fund will actually be funded. So we will have cash in an account. Before the end of the construction of the system, before the end of the last house being constructed, we will have a fully funded capital improvement fund, and then the capital operating fund is funded as well. And Stan might want to elaborate, but after 2 quarters, then we take stock and figure out whether or not the operating fund requires a little bit more money based on the operation of the system, and then that's recalculated. And all of these funds are put in place because the township will ultimately be the entity that owns and operates the system and actually bills the homeowners that live in the neighborhood. So that's why we take so much concern, because we're just like if someone doesn't build the roads, we're the ones that are going to be on the hook. And Franklin Township, having just a small staff, doesn't necessarily do this every day. So we want the developer to do this work. And if they didn't do it, then we would have the ability to take the financial security, but we don't want to. That's an eventuality. That's something that we're guarding against, I guess. Stan, did I miss it?
Mark, I've got a question.
Go ahead, Stan. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. No, Mark, I believe you were asking, I guess, if I thought you covered everything. And yeah, I think you generally did, I guess. But just to elaborate a little bit, and to also kind of second the points that have been made, the agreement, I think, really gives the township a lot of robust security. in a number of ways, and all the ways that have already been discussed. But some of those, for example, the developer has the obligation to fund the operating budget through a certain period and up to and including dedication of the township, and also continuing to fund any deficit should that continue in the operating budget for a period thereafter. The developer has the obligation to fund the capital reserve account, as was discussed, and that account is not necessarily there just to fix things when they break. It's there to set aside money for when we know things are likely to wear out over a period of time. It's what we should all probably do at home, setting aside money for when our water heater is going to go in 10 years or whatever. But that's the intent of that capital reserve fund, so that the township would always have those funds available when those things that eventually will wear out, do wear out, and the money's there to replace them, and everything keep rolling along without a problem.
So a couple questions here. One, Mark, what if they go, well, God forbid, the company goes bankrupt after 15 houses? What's our exposure? So I'll let you think about that. And then Stan, are there any risks you see in terms of how the field performs, or you know, what you think we might risk there? Is the soil look like the right soil for the system that's been chosen? So Mark, I'll ask you to go back to answer that.
So the 15th house, like I said, we have front loaded in the milestones, and this was done years ago. These milestones were put in place because Stan had ultimate concerns about allowing, you know, the development to proceed on pump and haul, and to get too far down the line with the number of houses that the developer is allowed to build. And then we would, you know, ostensibly not have a system, and there would be more exposure for the township. So in this case, we're looking at it, if the developer gets to the 15th house, they'll have to have either constructed the system and have the operation of the system be approved by the DEP, or the system will have been substantially completed. That's a term that's defined in the agreement, and that's something that Stan gets to determine. So when we're looking at permitting, I mean, we're at the 6th house now, so 7 through 12, they'll be building the system, and by the time we get to the 13th through the 15th house, either the system has been approved and is operating, or approved for operation by the DEP, or the construction is substantially complete. So we're going to basically have a substantially complete system or an operational system by that time. So this was a point that we had to negotiate with the developer. They wanted certainly more houses to be constructed before that time frame, but we were able to front load the construction of the system in order to hedge against any risk that the township may face in being forced to construct it on our own.
Hey, Mark, I got a couple of questions. First, do we have?
Go ahead.
Do we have any indication of how much it's going to cost to operate this sewage system per resident? And will we need to hire a full-time certified person to actually operate the sewage system?
I'm going to let Stan take that. I mean, we do have, and the reason why they switched from the one system to this one was because the operation costs less, and it's a simpler system. But Stan, do you have anything you can add on those points?
Sure. As far as the cost to the average homeowner out there, there are budget estimates at this point, which excuse me, will need to be refined as the system is constructed and operation begins. But right now, it's going to be in the ballpark of $1,600 a year per home out there to pay for the sewer fees. Essentially, that's not the final number. As I said, that's still going to have to evolve as the system is built. But that's the ballpark we're looking at right now.
Stan, a point of reference.
Sorry, let me just get back to the question. So Stan, sorry, John, just hold on. So Stan, I asked the drain field itself. Do you have any concerns about it?
No, the drip field out there, the drip irrigation field where the wastewater is going to be disposed of, has been tested pretty thoroughly, both for the initial system, some 15 years ago, plus or minus, and additional testing was done in concert with the redesign recently. And all that testing involves a lot of soils work, digging down, make sure that we're not too close to any incidents of high water table or rock, testing the infiltration rate in the soil. There's also a lot of hydrogeologic testing going on to make sure that introducing that amount of wastewater in that area isn't going to cause any problems, isn't going to cause any groundwater mounding in the area, isn't going to exacerbate any groundwater contamination issues. All that's been done pretty thoroughly, and all that's been done by the book, and we're pretty satisfied that it's a good site right now. What's going to be key to making sure that it functions appropriately is having a good operator and operating the system appropriately, which goes back to the other question I heard, that being, will the township need to hire somebody to run this? The answer is yes, but it will not be a full-time somebody. The township will ultimately have to have a licensed operator. There's licensing required through DEP to be able to properly operate these kinds of systems. So at some point in time when the township is ready to take over dedication, there will need to be somebody on board with those qualifications that the township is approved to cover the DEP requirements.
Yeah, this is John Auerbach, just kind of answering David's question about the cost. I think the cost that Stan indicated is about right, $1,600 a year. A point of reference is that London Britain has a system similar to this with only 16 houses on it in Windsor Court, and they're charging those residents a little over $3,000 a year for 16 residents. So we're sort of in the ballpark with $1,600 a year. But ultimately, the costs to the residents are going to be determined by the township. Once we get closer to the operation, when we hire an operator, understand all the costs that go into running the plant, which is electricity and consumables and other things, insurance, and there's a whole list of things I've got somewhere. I don't have them handy. But ultimately, that total cost to the township on a monthly or yearly basis needs to be allocated proportionally to the 38 houses. So the 1,600 right now is an estimate, and that may be what the developer indicates to the purchasers. But ultimately, the township has to recover all of its costs. And that will be determined once we get closer to actually taking over operation of the thing. The two largest costs, the largest cost in operating the plant is the operator. The second largest cost is electric. All the others are minuscule compared to those. So once you determine those two costs, then you'll pretty much have it. So I don't know if Stan could comment on that. He's got more experience than I do on that, obviously.
No, I agree with your points, John. And it's, it's really a matter of having a reasonable estimate up front, which we think we do have now, but actually getting started and, hiring the operator, getting the system up and running and experiencing what those costs actually are, so the township can set this up as a budget to sustain itself. And those 38 homeowners are going to each have to pay 1/38 of whatever that number ends up being. We think we've got a reasonable ballpark as an estimate at this point, but that will certainly change.
The township has to bill these customers individually, because the township will own and operate this thing. It'll be the township's full responsibility to operate and maintain it. And those costs will need to be billed out to the residents, probably quarterly or something like that. So we probably need some billing agency to do that. That's a cost that'll be included in the total.
So when you say the 1,600, I'm sorry, I'm getting into the weeds here, but that's based on 38 houses. So those first people, once that thing goes online and there's half the houses there, is that number double? So these residents are going to be spending, $3,000 a year until the full development's done.
We're not going to take it over until the full development there. So he's got to deal with that cost in the interim from 15 houses up to 38. we're going to eventually take it over at 38. So that's, so we'll have that cost, we'll develop that cost at that time.
Unless he walks away.
They can,
and there is some.
they can, I mean, depending, I imagine they'll probably want to build houses as quickly as possible, but there is a possibility of them requesting dedication at 75% build out. I mean, I don't know if that's something that would even be possible. But you know, at the rate the developer is moving, anything's a possibility.
Well, I mean, also just given the history here, I can't imagine we'd approve that.
David, to your point on the costs, you got the operator cost is the most expensive part of it, and it's a fixed cost. So it's not going to be proportional to the number of houses that are putting waste into it. That fixed cost is going to be higher when there are fewer houses in it. How that's managed by the developer, that's his business. So I don't expect to take this thing over until they get 38 houses running on it and then have demonstrated performance.
I have a question. Are residents in Lexington Point aware this is what is coming? And what responsibility does the township have to residents to let them know, guess what's coming?
Well, it could be worth doing again. We've had several meetings with the residents, brought them into the township and gave them an overview of what was going on at that time and the status of it. But surprisingly, not all of them were aware they're going to have to actually pay for this service. So it's surprising. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to advise them again.
I believe the township years ago, when the 6 homes that are out there now were under construction, were being marketed, I believe the township at the time had required that the developer advise each of those buyers of the then projected user fees for the wastewater treatment system, which were actually a little bit higher than the numbers we're talking about now. Now, exactly how that was conveyed to those buyers, I don't know, and it's been 10 plus years, so it's certainly not fresh in anybody's mind, but there was certainly an effort to inform all those folks at that point in time anyway what they were buying into.
I believe it's in the purchase contract that they signed when they bought the house, but most of them know about it. That's to be redetermined, I guess, but that's my belief, that it's in their contract.
So how do we take care of that? Do we hold a special meeting? Do we alert the neighborhood and have them come into a board meeting, or do we send them, letters? I mean,
Last time we just invited him to a board meeting and had an open discussion with them and shared with them the information we had as a township. That's probably the best opportunity.
Okay. Well, I think
what we need to do tonight, and we'll get to that in a minute, is we're going to need to craft a motion to approve this contract or this agreement. So when we're ready to do that, I've got some proposed wording for the motion. So,
Mark, is it worth putting in the agreement that the builder has to notify new purchasers of the parameters of buying a home there and the potential costs with the system?
Yeah.
Well, I can certainly put a notice to them that they need to. I can't imagine that they wouldn't. I mean, but listen, I wouldn't put anything past any developer. I would, if the board were to so choose to approve the agreement, then I would note in my correspondence to the developer that this is to be given to each prospective purchaser. So that would be
protect the township in the event that something went south.
Yeah.
I
agree with you, Nancy. It has to happen, because I don't want any new resident coming back and saying, "Why didn't you tell me?" I mean, if they don't read it, we can't do anything about that. But we need to upfront let them know this is what you're getting into, and if you sign on the dotted line, this is what you have. We need to protect the township that way. Mark, agree with some wording to new potential buyers that this is what you're going to be facing down the road?
Well, it's kind of hard for me to believe that it's not in the legal contract, but that's certainly worth looking into. But I can't believe that he could sell a house and without a contract that indicated that that's one of the costs.
But John, you have bought a house, and if you read through every document you had to read through when you go to settlement, settlement would take 2 weeks. You don't read everything, but
that's why
this is really important. So if you put it right on page 1, they know where they stand, and they can't come back to the township and say, why didn't you tell me?
A lot of people hire attorneys when they settle houses for that reason.
I know, but that's not required in Pennsylvania. In New Jersey, it was required when I bought my house. It's not required in Pennsylvania, so people tend to do what is required. So we need to be proactive here, John. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I see that. That's secondary to what we're trying to do tonight. We're trying to get this agreement approved.
Well, it's not secondary to me because our time of negotiation is now. So they may choose not to agree to that once everything's signed. So my view is that if it's something that's important to us, it needs to go into the agreement.
Well, what I would do would be to, like I said, as part of the approval, and depending on what the board does tonight, I will communicate this to the developer. And one of the conditions would be that the prospective purchasers are notified of this, and then we could actually ask for, review that notice, whatever.
That we get a copy of that review so that we're sure that they read it, understood it, and agreed to it.
That's what I agree with.
The pump and haul didn't go particularly well. Let's accept that fact. They never cut the grass around it. There were times when there was power failures that we were afraid it was going to overflow. So there's not a great track record there. And that's all I have to go by.
And let's not forget, the reason we're having this conversation was they did this this plowing against
the brush cutting.
The brush cutting without authority. So yeah, this organization is definitely been suspect, at least since I've been paying attention to this. And that has only been a year, and there's a number of incidences where we're looking at, some problematic behavior. So, I mean, and again, I think, I'm going to follow Mark's recommendation. He's our counsel, but, I think we're all surprised by the behavior of this organization.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, is it possible that we could make a motion on the condition that this thing is included in the contract to get the approval moving, or do we have to wait?
Yeah, no, I would. I mean, again, this isn't the final agreement. And in order for them, I'm sorry, the language of the agreement would be the final language. And that's really what I'm asking the board to ostensibly lock in. And it's the exhibits that need to be completed. And one of the main exhibits is the actual design of the system, which Stan needs to ultimately work with their consultant to finalize. But no, John, I would say that the approval would be a motion to approve the form of the agreement with and as well as the milestones. And then if we wanted to have, that conditioned on this agreement being placed or being given notice to any prospective purchaser, I would put that in at the end of the motion.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I have a description of what we're going to approve. I could read it and see whether you agree. It's really some words that Joan put in the book. So I might want to all listen to this as I read it. This would be the description of the agreement. And it's the agreement to construct a community wastewater collection, treatment, and disposal facilities, as well as the Lexington Point wastewater facilities milestone requirements for issuance of building permits and certifications of occupancy documents. That's the nut of what we're trying to approve, I believe. I don't know whether that language is good or bad, but that's what's in the book here.
That's correct, John. That's correct. Yes.
Okay, so then the motion would indicate that we make a motion to accept this agreement. And then at the end of it, we would say on the condition that the builder notify all the purchasers of their obligation to pay for the sewage costs, some along those lines.
Yeah. Agreed.
Here's your reminder. It's 9 p.m. Time to wrap it up. Rush to.
That's my newest friend.
I'm in my son's room, so that's
My new best friend, Mark.
that was Alexa. Sorry.
All right, so
Wrap it up.
I can read this motion and Mary and Joan could listen to it and take some notes, but basically I'm reading out of the page in the meeting book. So then I would say I make a motion to approve the agreement to construct community wastewater collection, treatment, and disposal facilities, as well as the Lexington Point wastewater facilities milestone requirements for the issuance of building permits and certifications of occupancy documents, also contingent upon the builder notifying property purchasers of their obligation to pay for the sewage costs.
I second that emotion. I second it, John.
Does it sound right? I'm doing it on the fly here, so.
I'll go with Mark. Is that good?
I agree with that.
Okay.
Joan, do you have that written down or close? Joan, I can't hear you.
What's the last line?
The last line would be, after occupancy documents, would be contingent upon the builder notifying the property purchasers of their obligation to pay for the sewage costs.
Okay.
That's the best I can come up with on the fly.
I would just add the additional language at the end, contingent on its obligation to construct the system and pay for the sewage costs, John.
Okay, all right. So let the secretaries pick that up and.
Okay.
All right, Joan, you have all that?
Yes, I think so. Mary has it.
Yeah.
Okay, we established the motion. Are we ready to vote on it, or do we still have further discussion, I guess? That'd be the question. I think we've really beat this thing up. I personally feel very comfortable what Stan and Mark have put together. I think it gives us significant levels of protection against lack of performance by the builder. The agreement could always be stronger, but I think it's strong enough. The reason we have so much uncertainty and angst about this is past performance by this particular builder. So
exactly, John. We are all leery of this company because they do not have a good track record. So we're very afraid for our township. I agree, John. Stan and Mark have, they've done a great job, and they've reassured me that we're in a good position as a township.
I think we're in a good position, but I think you have to really be prepared for some lack of performance in the future. It's happened continuously over the course of this project, so it's not unlikely that something will occur in the future, but I think we're reasonably well protected.
Yeah, it is their MO, John. It's this company's MO, so we will not be surprised.
They've indicated that they want to try to take advantage of the housing market, and they're going to do their best to do that. We're still looking at about a year time frame, but we're hoping that their consultants address the issues that Stan has had, and we don't wait 2 months between communications like we have. So hopefully they'll do what they need to do over the winter, and we can start moving this forward in the spring and summer.
Okay.
But it's on them. It's on the developer. All we can do is try to lead in the water and hopefully they'll do what they need to do.
Right. I mean, just a quick reminder, this whole thing came about because this land was zoned high density, and they took the township to court, and absolutely, this is their right to build these houses this way and to put a sewer system in. All we can do is try to do our best to cross every T and dot every I so that our future residents don't get weighted with a tremendous cost of a system that is too expensive to run or that fails constantly. I think that's all we can do.
The system performance, I think Stan's done a really good job of helping define the system. The manufacturer guarantees its performance. We know the drip field will perform well. So I think if the system is installed correctly and turned over to us, that we'll be able to operate it within specs. So I'm confident that if it's built correctly, I believe the design is by a equipment manufacturer, not by a Keystone.
So Mark, do you want us to move ahead on a motion, vote on a motion? Is that where we're at right now?
Yes. The motion that John made, I would recommend that simply because this is the beginning, Mary. I mean, the developer still has a lot more work to do in order to finalize everything that's associated with this agreement. And then once that's done, then they can start building the system. We're hoping that finalization, will be able to take place over the next several months. This will be back before the board for a final approval with all of the system specifications, DEP permitting, and that's what this is the first step. And again, we have been in negotiation with them since August over this, and we're at Thanksgiving. So we'd like to put this aspect of the transaction to bed, so to speak, and then we can move forward with all of the other things that need to move forward. That is the determination of the additional or the new financial security, the new system specification and design, which Stan is going to be working with them on, but they need to produce all this so that they can move forward with their new system. So this is the first step. You're going to see this again, board.
Yeah, Mark, just to comment, I don't feel responsible for dragging this thing out. If you remember one of those meetings, we even offered a special meeting to move this thing on quicker, and they just sat on it for whatever reason. So I don't, that's my perspective. You probably saw more of it than I did, but.
I think
so is the board ready to vote on this motion?
I'm ready.
Anybody else?
Ready.
Okay. Who wants to put the motion out there, and then we'll take a vote.
All right, the motion's already out on the floor, and so the call is for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Do we have 5 ayes?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries. 5-0.
All right. 5-0. All right. Thank you, everyone, for.
Thank you so much for all this effort. This is.
Oh, it's really a big deal. It really is a big deal.
Up to date on all the issues that are coming down the line.
Yeah.
Thank you, board.
All right. Thank you, Mark. All right, John, talk about Hess Mill Bridge, please.
This will be kind of an upper here because actually this is going to be a pretty good report, and I won't spend a lot of time on it. But overall, this project really has moved along well. I've got a couple of points I'll make. Just looking back, the detour and the dismantle and remove work started Monday, October 5th. So we've only been at this thing for probably about 6.5 weeks. So Yardworks has done an excellent job with special attention to the DNR, which had some significant uncertainties when starting. We weren't really sure how to take this thing apart, and that came out really well. So going to current conditions, the bridge itself was installed with the wing walls by Contact, and their scope of work was completed November 11th. So we all saw the pictures of that and videos of that. That was a pretty impressive amount of work putting those pieces of concrete together. It fit perfectly. Went together like a watch. So here's the work that's going to go on now, because context scope of work is finished. We're done with them. So the burden of the work is on Yardworks and the guardrail supplier. So what Yardworks did, they filled the bridge arches with compacted number 57 stone, compacted it carefully in layers side to side and up and down, because the bridge manufacturer advised us you had to be really careful not to eccentrically load the bridge. So we put it in layers on each side so we didn't load it. Here's one note, some kudos to Dave Hocking, who allowed the township to stage 600 to 800 tons of stone on his farm to facilitate quick access to the material when required. This action provided a huge schedule advantage, as the quarries could not have delivered the stone as fast as we needed it. So we stockpiled it on Hocking's place and were able to get it quickly. So thank you to Dave Hocking. And that filled in most of the arch and got the bridge fairly level. Then they added a layer of 2A modified stone, which is a finer mix of stones that can be compacted. It finishes like concrete. So that brought the surface of the bridge near the finished elevation. So actually you could drive over it now, not safely, but you could. They're cleaning up all the soil locally around the wing walls because there's extra soil in there because of the excavation. Because we made the bridge 32 feet wide and the original one was 25 feet wide. So there's a good bit of excess spoil material. And they're picking that up and moving it out right now. They added some number 6 stone today, to reinforce the wing walls. And number 6 stone is a piece of stone that's 15 inches across. So these are big hunks of stone and rock. And then tomorrow they're going to add some number 5s, which are just a little smaller. And all that will stabilize the wing walls. It really starting to look good. And they're going to finish removing all the soil from the area. They're salvaging large rocks from all this material and putting it into the wing wall stabilization. So they're conserving some material. This Friday, we're going to add a layer of coarse asphalt, 25 millimeter stone locally on top of the bridge arch. That's just on the exposed part of the bridge. But before Thanksgiving, they're going to install the asphalt base, which will extend the paving to the existing patch on Dudquit's property. There could be an adder of about 20,000. We're just looking at that right now because it doesn't make sense to not run the road reconstruction up to this patch. So that's being talked about right now. So before Thanksgiving, we will probably have a bridge you could drive over, although not legally because the guardrail won't be in place. And the guardrail scope has recently been developed, but the actual schedule is not clear at this time. Jeff could add on to where the guardrail schedule is, but our expectation is that the bridge will open probably December 1 to December 8th, somewhere in that period, open for traffic. And right now, although not safe or desired, the motorists will begin using this bridge as it is drivable. We won't be able to stop them from doing that. They'll just drive around the barricades. So just as a final point, we probably ought to consider some dedication ceremony in the spring when the weather's warmer. But overall, this project has moved along very well on schedule. So we'll probably have this bridge down around 8 weeks. So I'm pretty happy with that. If we could have moved the bridge manufacturer up about a week or two, we could have got it sooner, but we just couldn't. So overall, looks real good. You take a ride down there and look at it, you'll be impressed.
Well, that's great. Anyone have any comments on this?
You want to talk?
Go ahead, Joan.
I believe Jim Durazio wants to say something.
All right, Jim.
One thing that John was saying there.
Wait a minute.
You're out in the woo-woo. We can't hear you.
Unmute yourself. There you go.
Got it now?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. The one thing that was said there with John, the cost of that extra blacktop, I just did a rough number. You're looking at really it's only $6,000 in order to incorporate everything from the storm damage areas around Jay Dukowitz and tie that bridge in. It's more of tonnage versus any more time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the 20,000 was a number we just threw around a couple of days ago. We really didn't have anything other than a swag for that. So appreciate that upgrade.
Jeff wants to say something. Go ahead.
And just to say, staff has been in contact with Ron Reagan, and it was an idea that he had come up with, and it seemed to certainly be reasonable.
Jeff and Joan, where are we at with the guide rail guy? I don't have a whole lot of information on that other than Ron Reagan's been talking to him.
We met with Collinson, John, I believe it was last week. And he has a to-do list and we are waiting back from him. In all honesty, after talking with Ron, we may be a couple of weeks out for the guide rail. They do have to manufacture some pieces, unfortunately. But Ron seems to feel we would be able to open the road to limited traffic and maybe put up cones or those concrete barricades as a temporary measure.
Well, I think he's going to be our critical path. I think that's where we got to concentrate because all the work that Yard Works has to do, and I don't mean to diminish it, but it's all his stuff that they know how to do really well. So I have no doubt that they'll finish it pretty soon. So the guardrail is going to be the critical path item at this point.
Absolutely. And believe me, John, they know we want it.
All right. I don't have anything more to add. Jim, do you have any more?
No, I'm good.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so very much, John. Appreciate that update. Donna, would you like to move on to the next item?
Yes, I will, Mary. So it has to do with our truck. So I think folks know that we had to purchase a new truck because the one that Jeff was driving was undrivable. But they're in an attempt to get some money for the truck. We have a motion that I'll read out to say, make a motion for the Board of Supervisors to approve the sale of the Franklin Township 2006 Chevy truck for $500. So can I have a second for that?
I'll second it.
And a second by John. So any discussion? I think the information was in your meeting books that Jim D'Orazio made the first request for the product for the truck at the $500 amount, and I believe that's the plan is to sell to Jim.
So my only comment is I think that's fine. I think going forward, if we ever have anything for sale, we should just make it public knowledge and let anyone, put their names in the hat. If we decide that we just want to sell it for a certain amount, we put the names in the hat and we pick someone. Obviously, this is not a big deal, but I do like the public to be able to be aware and to have an opportunity to also get a chance at it.
Thanks, Nancy. Anybody else? Any other discussion? Any comments?
No.
All right. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, so it passes 5-0. Thank you. Nancy, it's off to you.
Okay, let me pull up. I think Joan is going to talk to us about the Franklin Township Office Operation Assessment Update.
Well, I received a long list from Kerry Vargos of a lot of documents that he wanted to see. So I gathered those all together and sent those off to him. And I reached out to him by email yesterday to say, you know, okay, where does everything stand? And he did tell me that he has reached out to some of the board members to schedule some appointments to talk to all of you. And he said when he's finished talking to board members, he's going to schedule some time to come in and talk with the staff. And by, you know, after that is done, that he should have something pulled together. So that's where we are right now.
Any questions or comments? Okay, thanks, Joan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so now we'll discuss the 2021 interim road and maintenance bids. I guess it would be Joan or Jeff. I'm not sure who'd lead that conversation.
I can. We did not receive a bid for this. When we realized during the bidding period, when it was out to bid, that we had made an error in the amount of hours that we were requesting anybody to bid on. And it overinflated what would be the cost of a performance bond, because what we did, and Jeff's thinking was right on with this. He got a list of all the invoices from Jim's bookkeeper for last year, and so we went through and taking all the hours that Jim actually worked for us. But those hours also included work to do the road paving, the big projects, and we're taking that out of the interim road program bid this year. So those hours, like I said, were overinflated. So what we did is Jim was the only one standing here with a sealed bid in his hand, so we didn't get any other bidders, and so Jim opted not to present his bid. And we're going to look at the numbers again and try and come up with something reasonable to reflect the actual amount of time that the interim road work would be done, since it won't include the paving. So that's where that stands. And Jeff's got the numbers all together. We can put the bid together and probably start advertising it next week. And the thought is too, by lowering the requirements for the performance bond, it might be something that someone else may look at.
By what we did, it makes it fair for everyone. So it is now a truer picture.
So just so I understand, I'm just because I'm just still learning about this process. If when you send out a bid and it has more hours, is it more attractive to a potential bidder, or does it not really impact a potential bidder if you say, okay, well, we've got 1,000 hours versus 500 hours?
Our bid states that these are only estimated hours, and they're not guaranteed, and they could be more or less. And part of the problem is if you have all these hours there and the contractor is not going to be able to work that many hours, he's paying for that performance bond and not going to have the work. So it's you got to try and have the right an equal amount there. I mean, Jeff does a good job of trying to guess with his crystal ball, how many hours we're needing and still make it reasonable so that you can get bidders.
I understand. Thanks.
Jim, what's a performance bond? I don't even get the basic concept. So that's something the contractor has to take out, to ensure his men, or?
To ensure his performance.
Oh, to make sure that he delivers. Oh, I gotcha. Okay. All right.
So it's like an insurance policy.
For us, yes.
Yeah.
So are there any more questions about that? So we can, Dave, you can move on to the
next motion.
The bid we did get.
Yep. All right. So moving on, I make a motion that the Board of Supervisors award the 2021 Snowplow bid contract to Yardworks, who was the lowest responsible bidder. Seconded by?
I'll second it.
Okay. Thank you,
Mary.
Mary. Discussion.
Well, just out of curiosity, did we get other?
No.
So it was the only bid.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Okay. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Dave.
All right.
All right, I make a motion. Wait a minute. Yeah, I'm unmuted. I make a motion, the Board of Supervisors approve the preliminary budget as presented by the Township Treasurer for advertising. Obviously, we have to discuss this before we can second anything. All right, Joan, you want to take it from there?
Well, you all were given copies of the preliminary budget, and I
Right.
have talked to several of you and answered questions. I don't know if anyone else has any questions at this time that I can answer. Our budget is normally pretty consistent. One of the major changes in the last sheets that was sent out to you was the removal of the payroll from the park for John Hocking. That previously we were paying him, the park was reimbursing the general fund. And by taking that out and moving that strictly to the general fund, to where all payroll now is accounted for, that frees up about $10,000 in the park fund to be used for some of the projects that the pro group has. So that, again, that was one of the biggest major changes. And the other change I made from the time from last month was the grant money that we're getting from Chester County Conservation District. Jim Demchek told me that we would have it this year, and I was thinking it would be last year. I thought it would be longer for them to pay us, but he actually sent me a check for half of it already. So as soon as I give him the contact bill, and the project's finished, we can get the rest of it.
Joan, we had agreed that we would use the reserve fund to manage the cash flow if we didn't get this thing in time.
Right, but we are getting it. Like I said, he gave me a check for $135,000, and I can get the rest as soon as the project's done.
All right, now speaking of the reserve fund, we have in the reserve fund right now nearly $250,000.
Let me get that in front of me.
I don't have it.
At the end of this year, with the transfer from the general fund, you'll have $230,000 in the reserve fund.
If you remember when we originally set the reserve fund up, goes way back, we had no reserve, which was a really uncomfortable feeling for me to not have any reserve. And the target was to try to accumulate about $250,000. And we're right there right now. So what I'm thinking looking ahead is that we don't need to probably put any more money in the reserve fund next year, because I think you have a reasonable amount now to cover major issues. So I think we put it in this year, but I don't think you need to put it in next year. That's my overall assessment of it, because the original target was about $250,000. The other thing, we've got the Hess Mill Bridge behind us, which was a big kind of cloud hanging over us. So that reduces the worry a bit. So
can we kind of poll each other and see what does everyone feel is a good number in the reserve fund that we should shoot for, and then after that cap it off? Well, John, you're saying $250,000.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying that the 240,000 is close to the target.
Close enough, yeah. How does everyone else feel about that? Dave?
No, I think that's appropriate. I mean, I think
Okay.
you want to have, you know, you want to have a sufficient amount of money to cover an emergency, but you also don't want to hamstring current current world needs
Right.
for,
right.
you know, an existential threat. So I think we probably have enough with the 250.
You think
or 240.
250 is adequate? Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
we're
How
only
about you,
going to
Nancy?
240.
240. Yes, it'll be 240. Yeah.
230.
Oh.
30.
The end of this year is 230.
I still think that's adequate because with the 250, the $250,000 was a target we had when we were expecting that we'd have to fund the Hess Mill Bridge by ourselves.
Okay.
Now,
I'd like to know, Donna, how do you feel? What's your
I would go for
kind of
one more.
cutoff number?
So Mary, this is not one I'm going to die over, but if I had my choice, I'd do it one more time. I would do it for 2021. Get us get us over the 2,500 2,500 as opposed to being below it, and then we could cap it. But I just think I feel better if I just had one more shot at it. But like
How
I said,
about you, Nancy? How do you feel?
Well, I think that I'm okay with it right now. I think if something came up that we wanted to invest in, if there was a land preservation opportunity,
Okay.
I would always like to see about 50K available for that. But I know Joan is able to move things around when she needs to. Our budget isn't that tight that we couldn't do it.
So would you go the way Donna's saying, like, let's do one more year and then talk about capping it?
Yeah.
Okay. And I agree with Nancy. I agree with you, and Donna, I agree with you. I'd like to do 2021 as a little extra cushion, and then I'm fine.
This is a decision you make in next year's budget. It's just talking ahead of time. So
I know, but we're just getting a feel. Where's everybody stand?
So that's,
is there a
your attitude could change next year. Who knows what's happening, but that's probably where
Every year brings new surprises.
Wait, John, I'm confused. We're talking about the 2021 budget, right? So we would be talking about what we're going to do next year, right?
Yeah, that's.
Isn't that what we're talking about?
we're talking about the following year then, because right
Well,
now
I'm talking about 2021. So I'm saying,
yeah.
I'm talking about 2021, what we do in 2021, because we already have it budgeted for 2020.
Right.
So it's not. It's for next year, for 2021.
Yes.
the budget we're talking about right now.
Well, that's already done. Oh, that's already done, right?
No.
We're already. Okay, I'm sorry. Go, Joan.
We're talking about 2021. So
Yeah.
that means the sheet would
So-
stay the way it is now.
So what we're saying is, if we don't put, all right, maybe I'm confused too.
I gotta look.
If we, what we're saying is, if we put, do we spend 20 grand this year to get it to 250? Is that what we're talking about?
Next year.
So, okay.
we're
So
gonna
if
end-
we're going to end 2021 with 230.
No, we're going to end 2020 with 230, almost 231,000. The
Okay.
budget for 2021 includes transferring another $45,000. And if we do that, we will end 2021 with $277,000.
So I think what we're saying is, why don't we just transfer 19 to get it to a nice clean 250?
That's fine.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
With that.
You're going to make me change my sheets?
Yeah, we are.
if I can raise a question, this is Darren Chick. I'm a resident of Franklin Township. Understanding what I've heard so far, that we've come a long way from having zero reserve fund to the point now that we have $250,000 set aside, as opposed to just saying $250,000 is the number. Could there be value in saying that you will have at least X amount of dollars, but a percentage of the following year's estimated costs set aside, as opposed to 5 years from now and X and Y happening and we find out we needed actually 300,000 in our reserve fund? Just begging the question, and I won't say any more. Thank you.
Darren, the only thing I could say is that you can adjust it every year based on what you see in front of you. I feel really comfortable with that amount. Starting out with zero many years ago is a very uncomfortable feeling, believe me.
Well, I think too, it's a guesstimate we're doing. We want some money in the bank. We don't want too much money in the bank because then we should lower taxes. So I think we're trying to get to a number where we're comfortable what
Yep.
we have set aside in the reserve account and not go over that. And then we can adjust. And if something very expensive comes up, we have to come back to the table and talk.
Yeah,
But it seems like 250 is a real good
Yep.
number for all of us.
The uncertainties that generated that thought were, of course, the Hess Mill Road Bridge.
Right.
And the extraordinary costs that were projected for stormwater costs. We still don't know what that is. That's a crapshoot all the way. And we've heard as much as $200,000 a year for stormwater was original estimate we got from LTL, or one of the estimates was $2 million over 10 years. That's $200,000 a year. So,
right. And I think too, another big expense that we're not looking at, or we're not paying a whole lot of attention to, the cost of our emergency services is going to increase a lot. I mean, people are not volunteering to work for fire companies. We need fire protection, everything. We need all those services, and those costs are going up every year. And that's something that will cost our township more money. So there's a lot of balls up in the air.
The other uncertainty was the Kimblesville sewage situation. And, by rights, the township shouldn't have to fund that, but certainly the residents couldn't fund it. So I don't know how that would actually play out. That could be an expense that could fall on the township if some court decided that we were responsible.
Okay, so we're kind of in agreement. We'll coast along next year, and then at this time next year, we'll put a cap on it, right?
Yeah, well, I think we're going to do the transfer of the 19 to just get the even
250.
the 250, and then we'll revisit the conversation next year when we do the budget.
So
I agree, Dave.
I agree with that. So I'll vote yes.
I do too.
Okay, so I have a spreadsheet set up here, so I'm going to change the transfer from the general fund. Can we just make it an even 20,000 instead of 19? Is that okay?
1995.
No, seriously, 20,000.
20. That was 20. Yeah, fine.
Okay, so I'll change that number.
Okay.
And then let me get to the reserve fund. And change that there. Okay, so we're doing. Okay, I will give you these final numbers in case we make some other changes here.
So I guess the next process is we take the budget and advertise it, and then we ratify it in January or in December. Is that the?
Yes. What you need to do is pass a motion for us to advertise the budget, and we will do that for the month. And then at the December meeting, you will pass a motion to adopt the budget.
Perfect.
You really can't make any significant changes to it after you make this motion tonight. Some minor stuff, but really minor stuff. So,
I think we would, if there's going to be any changes, we probably would have already talked about them. Right?
Joan, I briefly spoke to you about what kind of money are we looking at putting in the park? Do we have to budget that, or we just go as we go along? Or
Mary, as I said earlier, we moved the payroll for John Hawking. That has for 2021 is being moved out of the park, and it will just stay in the general fund with all payroll. So that frees up extra money for the park.
Yeah, but that wasn't very much.
No, it was only like 20 grand.
That was 10,000. So right now, if you look at your park sheet in front of you, there's 48,000 being budgeted next year for the what I would call routine maintenance, the mowing, the fertilizing the fields, that type thing. And then 20,000 for any park improvement projects. Now, something major, if it's something very expensive, a major project, as we did with the tot lot when we redid the base of all that, that we took out of the capital account, because I mean, the park, there's not a lot of extra money there for the park to handle those major capital expenses.
If you would have to do a major project on the tennis courts, that funding would come from the general fund capital.
From the capital account.
Yep.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Not like the $20,000 that will be, park budget, but major improvements, tennis, what's the other court? The other courts, and maybe the parking lot. Are we thinking of budgeting money for that?
Well, right now, Mary, according to the numbers that I have here, the capital account will start 2021 with $178,000 in it. Okay. And that again can be used however the board chooses. In the budget, I have included $10,000 for engineering services and $10,000 for design services, should we choose to move forward with doing the renovations to the other rooms. Okay. And that would leave $159,000 for whatever we need done. Okay.
Okay.
However
we
you want
vote
to
on
spend
during the
it.
year.
However you want to spend it.
The beauty of having it in the capital budget just gives us that flexibility as we think about projects in 2021. You move money around as you see fit, as long as it's a capital project.
Well, and it's also it's like you having a savings account that you're saying, okay, I know I can spend this money. It's not getting mixed up with my regular expenses. So when we move it over there, it's being held separately, and that way we know how much we have if we want to do something. I mean, if a crisis hits, you as Nancy said, you move things around and move the money wherever you can get it and wherever you need it. But at least if it's in the capital account, it's sitting there and we can use it as needed.
So I'm not suggesting we do this. It's just a general question about how we do this budget. If we decided, instead of $40,000, we have $100,000 in the park fund, and take that out of the general fund, and a major disaster happens, are we hamstrung and we can't move money out of the park fund to pay for the major disaster that would normally come out of the capital fund?
Mark, that's a question I have for you. Since the park fund, most of the income in the park fund is generated from tax revenue, can that be spent in other places?
If it's essentially general fund revenue and it's not, raised as a specific revenue, as there are a list of different revenues that you can utilize in the second class township code. But if it's essentially just general fund revenue that's placed in a park fund account, then yeah, okay, you can do that.
This is tax revenue. Our millage, we have a set millage for Park and Rec.
It's dedicated funding. You can't spend it on anything other than the park.
Right. What I'm saying is the question was, can we, if we put more money into the quote park fund, that money cannot then be moved out to pay for something that we need that's not park related? No, correct. I'm not talking about the tax money generated. I'm talking about if we decide to, again, I'm not suggesting we do this, but I'm just saying we split the general fund. Half of it goes into parks and half of it stays in the general fund. Is that half that we just took out of the general fund no longer available for capital projects outside of the park? Or is it just we've done an accounting earmark for that money?
I believe it's the latter.
Okay, it's just an accounting. Okay.
Yes. Now, if it was a tax revenue that was based solely on the authority and the code, like John had mentioned, a dedicated to parks, then that's a different equation. But if it's general fund revenue that you just place in the fund, then no, you can move it around.
Okay.
This doesn't seem to be any advantage to move it into the park fund. It's more available to anything in the general fund. If you need it in the park, you can always move it in there. Yeah. Or if it's a major capital project like the tennis courts, you can spend it right out of the capital account.
Yeah. I just wanted to understand how the accounting worked. I wasn't suggesting we.
I think the only money that's locked in there is the dedicated one, which is 0.27 mils of the real estate tax. You can't spend that on anything other than the park.
All right. Any more discussion?
Just a couple quick questions on the
Okay.
maintenance. So, John, you're keeping the snow and ice removal the same as this past year. Basically 260,000. Your road maintenance, it looks like it's coming down from, well, 2019, it was a lot more. I'm just wondering why this year and next year it's come down.
Nancy, I could have to get into my, I can't see my accounting program here. If I exit the full screen.
Hess Mill Bridge cost, was that just out of the general fund, or was it under?
The Hess Mill Bridge cost, the bulk of it's coming out of the capital account this year, because we're transferring money from the general fund to the capital account, and that's going to pay that. Okay. And to answer your question, I mean, I have just found, like, as far as the snow costs, I have found that if I budget that number, you know, you never know what snow's going to do. You know,
we can always
generally it works. I mean, there's been years where we used way more money than I budgeted there. Those storms that John was talking about, and then you take last year or this year even, you know, we haven't used anything. We used $49,000 out of the 260 that I budgeted there. But it's something you don't know, you know, until the storms come. I've just found those numbers have really worked well for me over the years, so that's why I consistently use those. And as far as the 200,000 for the regular road maintenance, that is normally where we try to stay. I have to get into my accounting book to see what that 304,000 was. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay. That's fine. I think it's as good a number as any. And again, if we don't spend it, then we can save it or put it towards something.
Oh, whatever, at the end of the year, like what's going to happen next month, that any money that's in the general fund that is beyond what I need to start next year with will be transferred to the capital account, and there it can be held to use where, you know, for whatever you want.
Right. Okay. I don't have any issues otherwise with the proposed budget.
Does anyone else have any questions?
No.
I'm okay.
Okay.
So
should we take a vote?
Well, you need a second. Read the motion and get us.
I'll read it, but no more discussion, right?
It wasn't seconded, so you got to read it again.
I know. All right. I make a motion. The Board of Supervisors approve the preliminary budget as presented by the Township Treasurer for advertising. Seconded by?
I second it.
Okay, John can have it. That's good. Give it to John.
Okay, we're done discussion. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries 5-0. Great, thank you. All right, that's the end of it. We're up to public comment at the end of the meeting. Is there any public comment?
Yeah, this Paul, I have a comment.
Could you state your, Paul Overton? Is
Paul
that
Overton.
who's speaking?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
For Lexington Point, I don't know if Stan's still around, but in this system that we're proposing for the sewage, is there any possibility of odor coming out of the system? Like, it's going to be right next to the houses, so is that going to be a problem? I don't know if Stan's still around.
Stan is not on.
But it's a different system than the one I saw when I was a supervisor, so that was a concern. And you might want to think about that, because then it'll be your problem to fix it if it smells.
John, isn't this a sealed system, and then it goes until it goes to the drip fields?
Unfortunately, all the tanks have to be open top tanks, because you can't put it in a closed container, because you need a nitrogen pad on there to prevent an explosive mixture in there. But if they're operating well, there isn't much odor. But if they misoperate, they can produce some odors. So
Well, I would argue that even if it's operated well, you're going to have odor, and all you have to do is go down to West Grove and walk past that sewage plant. But is this something for you guys to think about?
Yeah.
Design is fixed. We approved it, so I'm not sure there's any room to move now. It's years to get where we are now, so I don't see anything backing up now.
Well, it's good to ask Stan about it and what you could do about it. And maybe next time you should ask for public comment before you vote on stuff that's important like this. Okay. And then the next one is, has anybody proposed to the builder, I think they feel cornered, like they have to build this 38 house development that they fought so hard for. Has anybody offered them like an easy pass to build, 10 big lots with on-lot sewer?
Yes.
And be done with it?
Yes.
Yes.
Several times. They made life so much easier, Paul.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it's in front of them, but I appreciate you asking them.
Paul, just what was offered to him many years ago was to reduce the number of houses to about 19 and then use the lots on each side for an on-lot system for each one. So everybody would have a system that's very conventional to Franklin, and he wouldn't accept that.
Yeah, that thank you. That's all. I just want to
times.
Okay.
Maybe you can remind him after he's struggling in a few houses from now.
I think he has priorities that we may not understand. And, on the surface, it looks like it isn't the way we might go, but I don't think we know everything about how he operates or how he wants to spend his money. So we've kind of accepted that we're not going to see things the way he might.
That's a very generous way to put it.
Well done, Nancy.
Well done.
Yeah. All right. Is that it, Paul? Do you have more comment?
Nope, that's it.
That's it. Thank you, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Any other public comment out there?
Darren Chick.
Hello, Darren. You are a resident?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
I distributed something to John. I don't know if it was shared out to you. It's a 2-page PDF document where I attempted to summarize what a few of us neighbors of the Chisel Creek property are trying to do in collaboration with the Subastro investment. And the goal here is twofold, really. Number one, I wanted to introduce myself. I want to just give a call out to both Dave and to John, who have worked with us over the last several months. I say worked, wrong word. Who have been available for us to seek input and comment. It's been very helpful to have some input from supervisors, and you are the ones that we reached out to. So just passing along a thanks. And we are looking to obtain property. And I kind of put this out. Did this get shared? Did the supervisors have this one page?
Darren, I got it late in the day. I did share it maybe an hour and a half before the meeting.
No. I just wanted to, if you didn't have it, I'll go through it a little more detail than if everybody has it. And that's my fault, guys. I didn't send this. I prepared this on Monday and then neglected to share it with John until today. So I apologize.
Has it, whether they have access to it in this meeting, I don't know, but I've got access to it. So
sure.
And so, I have a copy.
So I just in one page was trying to summarize who we are, what we're trying to do, and the fact that we were interested to learn from you guys as supervisors, what kind of things we need to think through so that we can become not just good neighbors and civil servants, but also be collaborators with you who are looking out for us. And work with Jose and Jasmine as they're trying to advance their investment goals to make this work for all of us. And in speaking with both Dave and John, and then obviously with a number of folks here in Chisel Creek, not everyone, but we are continuing to form a better community as a result of this catalyst of the opportunity for some of us to grow our properties and protect some open spaces. So that's the goal at a really high level. And I tried to put at the very bottom of the document, what we're looking for from the supervisors, so that we can hear from you, learn from your experience about both the commercial, practical, the side of things, but also, what's involved in making a successful subdevelopment plan to you guys, so that we think through some of those things and hopefully can answer some of those questions and think through some of those results before it gets to you, making the process a win-win all the way around.
Well, I appreciate that, Darren. It's great to meet you. And the item that I kind of struggle with is we've talked with Jose, and I think Paula and Nan have talked to Jose about having a connector trail that goes from Nickel Park to Ford Farm. And as part of the community that we really take pride in having a lot of open space and a lot of public access trails. There's one in my property, there's one behind Dave's property. And so I'm not sure how it would get coordinated, but I think it would be important for perhaps your consortium or your group of residents to work with Jose and have kind of a shared plan of what that would look like, so that when each of you goes to Hillcrest, whether Jose wants the trail to go just through his property or whether there will be something that will go through both of your properties, that you're able to talk about it and put it on the proposed plan in the way that all of you agree, so that when you come to the PC, and perhaps you come with Jose, so that when we as a board look at it, we can see the full picture and we can see how we can take this tremendous opportunity to connect Nickel Park and Ford Farm and see the way it might work. And so when we approve one, we're essentially approving both, so that we know that you're all on board with the way the trail might work. That's my main interest. Otherwise, I'm happy that you guys, have plans and you want to kind of create a buffer from your neighbors, and that's all terrific. That to me is absolutely great.
And Darren, I'm similar to Nancy in the sense that I'm really supportive of your idea of doing the buffer. I'm not the expert. I think it's working with the township folks to figure out how to actually do this. But I think it's a great idea to have the buffer. The trail is not as important to me, but helping you guys get that when it's time, when it comes to the board. Like I said, I think it's a great idea.
I'd like to let the board know that I reached out to Jose and asked him. I said, we had talked about having a trail through your property, and is that something that you would still consider? And he said, yes. He says, right now, he says, my main focus is on building my house and getting that done. He said, then when I'm done, I want to have an overall plan with the neighbors and with what he wants to do with the rest of the property. I know he's talking about trying to preserve most of it with an ag easement. So, to take that into consideration and come up with one plan that he can just take through. So that's his goal. But he said his main concern right now is to get his house finished.
Understood. I just, I don't want it to be a situation where we're not able to do it because we didn't plan ahead. So that's my main concern, Darren, is that we have a shared understanding and the plans reflect that shared understanding. So I don't want to slow you guys down, but I also don't want to get ourselves stuck in a corner because we didn't plan ahead. It's really a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I don't want to miss out on it.
And Jose has made that. I guess I'm not clear from what the way it's been phrased, whether this is a quid pro quo. If there's no trail, there's no subdivision. But he's made it clear to us that it is something that the township desires, and he's working with you guys towards that solution. But he also wants us to be involved in that as recently as today. There is correspondence with Jose, and we are, you know, part of that community that is working with him, and we're trying to get basically all the neighbors that are adjacent to this property on board, or at least signing off that they have no objection to do that. And so that's where we're coming at it, so that when Jose, what we're trying to get in place is more towards, and I'm sorry, I don't know what the township, I think you're the township manager, whoever was speaking before.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's what you're getting to. And we are looking very much at what I refer to on the document as Plan B, having a holistic view of how do we do this? How do we make it work? Obviously, the idea of connecting the two is helpful, and this is a property in transition, so that's a plus. On the same token, some of us do have anxiety about what a path behind all of our houses would create in terms of an opportunity for crime in an area that I think everybody knows we have. This year hasn't been bad, but we have been a target. I think all of our communities that are accessible to the Maryland border just make an easy target. So we're just trying to understand all those things, and this is one of them. So thank you for bringing that forward. But I also ask, we invite, you know, if there's concerns about noise ordinances, if there's concerns about, you know, how are we worried about infrastructure impacts? Obviously, with the size of what's there, there's, you know, building a house. We're excited to have a neighbor nearby who owns this property and is interested to preserve it. But we're also looking to come with him to the township as a group, so that you know that we have bought into a plan. And our thought was that hopefully that makes it easier for you as our elected representatives to say, hey, we are asking for your input, we're collecting your input, and we're trying to create a response that addresses objections, concerns, recommendations in a whole package, not just to make it easier for Jose, but also to create a very clear and deliberate plan for all of us. Again, we're neighbors.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I guess my question is mostly just a lack of understanding, not really for you. Maybe the question isn't for you, Darren, but for Joan or our zoning officer, is when you do a subdivision like this, you know, the intent, and this is what your intent is to expand your property, create a buffer between your both, you know, your neighbors and your potential, you know, and so I think that's good. The only question is, do we open ourselves up for further subdivision, or is this just you know, we're just subdividing, you're expanding your property line. There's no, you know, I don't think there'll be enough room for other houses. I guess that's really my only concern. And that's not a question for you, Darren. It's a question in general.
I think it's just how we word the agreement.
Yeah. I mean, because in principle, it's a pretty straightforward process, I would think.
David, I think in the overall sense, Jose's going to probably divide that property up in various pieces because he only wants a certain portion of it for his residents. So certainly the property will end up being divided up some way, and I don't know how that'll play out, but I think Darren and his neighbors want to be part of the plan. They see an opportunity to improve their properties. They have small lots. They're only about an acre. So if they could pick up another half an acre or something behind them, it enhances the value of their property, gives them some more recreation, also gives them the opportunity, if they need any additional septic field, they've got some more land behind the house. So there are lots of advantages to the neighbors, and I think they just want to put their oar in the water and say, look, we're interested in this possibility in the context of the overall plan. So I think they're just trying to get an idea, a consensus from the board, whether we would support the idea conceptually. And I think I do, and I heard Donna say she does. I wasn't aware of this trail issue, and that's definitely another issue. I have no idea where it's planned.
Right. I think
Okay. Can I speak here?
Yeah,
Mark, are you still on the meeting?
I
Mark?
am. Yes.
Can you address the Chisel Creek resident of how they should go forward with this?
Well, I guess I would suggest, and I'm not sure, Mary, you and I spoke generally about or Joan and I spoke to Joan about the concept, but I think it's premature to engage the board. I think the correct path is to, the subdivision land development ordinance allows for what's called a sketch plan review. So you don't have to do a full engineered plan, but you can put something together that is a concept plan, and you can put that before the planning commission to try to vet issues out. So that's really the correct pathway before the board is necessarily engaged. I mean, there's nothing before the board. I wouldn't want to give I don't even believe we have an applicant. I wouldn't want the board to give a sense to someone like you guys are, the board, all of the members are in agreement with something that we don't even have anything before the township at this point to even adjudicate or give an opinion on. So the normal course is if someone wants to get a sense, if the township has strong feelings one way or another about a subdivision or a lot line change or something along those lines, you file the sketch plan. It's a less expensive way to move forward, and then you get a sense from the planning commission and potentially ultimately the township. So that's what I would suggest before. I mean, I just don't think there's anything for the board to even give an opinion on at this point.
Thank you, Mark.
Appreciating that feedback, Mark. We're obviously not developers and we don't know the process. So is there someone, I mean, what I don't think I'm hearing is the only way for us to proceed is to engage a surveyor and to proceed the process and submit it to the planning committee. And then after we spent this money, we'll find out if the feedback that we're looking for, or am I hearing that? The only way to get feedback is we've got to spend a bunch of money about a plan that we might do, even though we're just residents trying to figure out how to take advantage of something. Or are we dumping this all, expected to push this all on Jose?
I guess I'm a little bit confused about the question, and I don't know who.
Okay.
I guess it would be if well, I don't know. This would be Jose's subdivision, presumably?
He is the property owner, correct?
Yeah. Well,
He's the property owner, but we're really trying to figure out, does this make sense? How much effort is involved? We don't know what we don't know. So as a resident, I was coming to the board to say, is there a way for me to find out what I don't know without tying up $15,000 when our entire expense is going to be less than that individually?
Aaron, you might want to make some inquiries to see what the cost of preparing a sketch plan. You may not even need a survey to do it. You may be able to do it with a sketch. And that's the concept of the sketch plan thing, is that you put this plan together and you present it to the planning commission and you get feedback.
Got it.
You'd probably have to put some money into it, but I don't think you'd have to do it yourself. So you might want to consider talking to Hillcrest or Cross and Ramado, one of the land developers that know our ordinances very well, right, and ask them what the cost, what would be the minimum cost of putting your idea down on a piece of paper that you could bring to the planning commission. So,
and I did do that, and I noted that in the document I share with you. If it was just a subdivision, the plan A, Crossan said roughly $15,000 would cover the whole subdivision plan, etc. Sketch, soup to nuts, based on their knowledge as the original surveyor of the property. And again, we're trying to gather that information. So I think and again, I'm just trying to paraphrase what I'm hearing. The next step for us to do is to submit something, because the planning commission can't really give feedback to what I've attached in this document until it's formally submitted.
You might want to be a little more pointed in your inquiry to the land guys, Crossan, or that you're only interested in the minimum cost to develop a sketch
Sure.
Present, because 15,000 sounds like a lot of money to me for a simple sketch. So maybe he's thinking that's the whole plan.
Yes, the whole plan.
So,
No, it is the whole plan.
So you might want to say, okay, what does it cost to just prepare one of these simple sketches, which probably doesn't involve a surveyor that can do it with a drawing and estimate things. So you don't need any field work. It may be something they can do in the office with a drawing. So that's just my comment.
Thank you.
That might be, because based on what Mark's saying, that we really can't give you a consensus, yay or nay.
Sure, understood. And that makes sense to me. You guys don't want to be put in a place where you're giving advice and then we can come back later and say, but you said 100%.
Well, even if we did, it wouldn't be something we'd be held to. So
sure, understood.
Our attorney's advising us not to. So
I think you also need to talk to Jose to see if he's willing to do something that just involves your small subdivision instead of waiting to combine it with his whole project. Because if he's willing to do that, that should be a very minor compared to the whole, what you have there as Plan B. So
and we understand that, and we have approached him about that as well. However, as neighbors, to the point, I think someone else tried to summarize, we really are saying, look, if we're going to go into this, we would like to be part of the big picture solution. Yes, we could get this done quickly, and each of us, at least 4 of us, add roughly an acre to our property. But that, at the point that we check that box, we kind of lose our say, if you will, materially, in having a stake in any future bigger picture items. And that's the purpose of our looking to do this. Is we want to labor with each other, but also with the township to say, how do we make this a win-win? And to the point of, if we can get a trail through here, let's get a trail through here. That's an easy win. There's got to be a way we can do it. If we start with the end in mind, we'll find a solution. So we're just trying to take that approach. And I guess I would put out there, respecting that the council has said don't give anything. I understand that. I do understand also that individual members could be permitted to make suggestions about things we should consider. Is that a correct statement? Just talking to the solicitor. If I get individual feedback, that's non-binding, and are the supervisors able to provide that input without any obligation?
No, we should not be. We're not at that point yet. Like you need to go to the planning commission. Joan, I disagree with you. I want to see the whole picture before anybody, for your benefit, Darren, and the township's benefit. We need a whole picture before we move forward. So we don't have anything right now. We don't have a picture right now. So if you go to the planning commission, do your sketch plan, which hopefully will not cost you a lot of money. You get Jose, who's the property owner, involved. We talk about a trail, and you get that in place. Then we can go forward. We have a plan. We have a picture. You don't want to do anything piecemeal, Darren. I know you don't. And then we say, oh, by the way, a trail's going through your backyard. And that's not a good. We need a picture, and we're not there yet. So sketch plan, planning commission, and then we're after all that. We don't want to do this piecemeal, Darren. It's not to your advantage or any of your neighbors or to the township. And I'm not saying I'm for or against. I mean, less houses being built, is always a plus, but we need a plan, and we're not there yet. So I
think what I think what's been communicated to you is that there's a process that's set forth in the ordinance, and that the planning commission is really the body that gives you the first feedback on a plan that they would see. So that's precisely what that sketch plan review process is built for you to get feedback.
Free advice is about what it's worth, Darren, you know?
No, that's fine. And again,
You're not
I'm
gonna get what you need unless you, and you wouldn't want another group of people to circumvent the system. This protects you and it protects everybody. So there's a logical process instead of one person saying one thing, someone else saying another, and it's not going to be helpful for you.
And who's the head of that planning commission? Because I think that I presented a document that include that in some case would be considered a sketch plan.
Yes.
And so therefore, I just want to understand if that is in play, who do I need to send it to make sure if I already have what is needed to get started, that would be helpful.
Submit it to the township manager and then she'll engage the planning commission.
Perfect.
Aaron, I think you've accomplished something positive here tonight. I mean,
oh no, absolutely.
Certainly you didn't get a consensus, but you got your oar in the water. People know about what you want to do. You've talked to the property owner. You understand a little bit about the process. So I think overall the discussion was a plus for you tonight. So that's my assessment of it.
No, I agree. And I thank everyone. I realize it's after 10. Thank you everyone for your time and your energy on this. I do appreciate the thankless job that you guys do probably 99% of the time. And it is appreciated.
Thanks.
Nice speaking with you, Darren. Thank you.
Mary,
thank you very much.
Hey, Mary, could I make a public comment back to Darren?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Paul.
So, just to allay his fears a little bit about the trail. Darren, it's, you currently have a dozen or so golfers going behind your house on the trail every day. And now we're talking about maybe a dozen or so a week, and the trail would be further from your house because it would be at the southernmost property line. So I wanted to just maybe calm you a little bit about that, but also those guys from Maryland that come up and rob us, none of them take trails because it's really hard to carry a TV set on a trail. Most of them take the road because the road is 20 feet, literally 20 feet from your front door, and the trail will be 200 feet from your back door. So think about that when you're thinking about those bad people sneaking up behind you.
Thank you for the comment.
Yeah, I don't want you to be afraid of it. I'm making a joke of it, but Dave lives with a trail behind him, and it's not as bad as it might sound at first. And there's always fencing and screening trees if you want to block it.
Understood.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Darren. Any other public comment before we close the meeting? Okay, there's no more public comment. So this meeting is adjourned at 10:17 p.m. Thank you so much, everyone. And now we are going to go into executive session. And Joan, somehow you can block everyone but the board and you from this executive session, I understand?
Yes, hold on. Let me start.
Okay.
Joan, you don't need me, do you?
I don't.